Sword of Coming Chapter 1173. Chapter 1173. Qin Kingda swordsmanship is average. Reading the military book can escape the summer heat, and the 100 orifices can be cool, and reading a good poem can also ward off the cold, and the whole body will be comfortable. At this time the three of us must have a bowl of lotus root starch. Cui Dongshan smiled and took out 2 bowls of iced lotus root starch from his sleeves and handed them to Jiang Shangzhen and Feng Xuetao. Feng Xuetao thanked him, feeling that he could never keep up with sect master Xi's thoughts. Cui Dongshan asked if he wanted a spoon, but Jiang Shangzhen said no, holding the bowl with one hand and eating lotus root starch with his head up. Cui Dongshan made 2 more bowls, one for each hand, one for the left and the other for the right. One soaring 2 immortals is such a fairy spirit. On the other side of the fish scale crossing the bank, some fairies who came here admiringly did not see Miyu, but found the young man in white clothes swaying, which was a surprise. While waving to them, Cui Dongshan chatted with Jiang Shangzhen about the current situation. On the mountain you can't provoke anyone who provokes these fairy sisters who like algae. The Qingping sword sect has already joined the new emperor of the Yuan dynasty of the Daoist dynasty. The Yuan dynasty, which was originally divided into 3, has finally returned to unity. Yuan Ying ascended the throne and proclaimed himself emperor. The Qingping sword sect and the Daoist dynasty are close neighbors. The new emperor of the Yuan family promises that in the future, not only the sword cultivator embryos who can meet their luck, but also the children who are suitable for Taoism will be sent to Xindu Mountain first. As long as Qingping sword is willing to accept it, they will automatically become outer disciples. As for whether they can stay or not, it depends on their own good fortune. In addition to Kuqing barnyard officer, there is also the female cultivator Wang Manmeng, nicknamed Qianhou or Qianjun, and now they have all become outer disciples of Qingping sword sect. One worked in the brewing bureau and served as the deputy to Lao Qiu, while Qianhou took a job at the Huaiyue bureau, which was regarded as helping Midai Xianxian. In addition, on the other side of the Rin River, there will also be several active-minded subordinate officials of the Hebeshifu, who will enter the Xindu mountain realm, and will not be included in the genealogy for the time being. If Luopeishan is said to have many vassal hilltops, few genealogical members and few institutions, evenly spread out, there are several people on one hilltop. Then Qingping Jianzong has more official offices than officials. On average it is almost 1 office per person. What's more, Jiang Shangzhen could see at a glance that such big divisions as the Department of Merit and Demerit and the Department of Operation would soon spawn a series of subordinate offices. No wonder Cui Dongshan is so anxious to recruit troops and horses. Luopao Mountain can have no matter how many people there are, but Shizong can't. It's just this kind of family chores. Jiang Shangzhen, the chief of the previous sect, will not interfere so as not to have less chairs in the Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall in the future. Not to mention that he has to pay attention to a brother who clearly settles accounts. Jiang Shangzhen teased, "Isn't it just not picking?" Cui Dongshan said with a smile. "Screening, you must first be screened before you can choose, otherwise it will be difficult for a clever woman to cook without rice." Jiang Shangzhen asked, "Do you want to use a ready-made example to teach your husband how to manage a sect?" Cui Dongshan said angrily, "How dare I have such a rebellious idea? Chief Shou is going to spit blood." Jiang Shangzhen smiled and said, "I really envy you. You can start all over again and make a comeback." Many teenagers are full of vigor and ambition, and they are reduced to bagasse all over the place after being chewed by the world. With Jiang Shangzhen's realm and means, even if he does not talk about the identity of the cultivator of the Yugui genealogy and the head of the Jiang family, it is not impossible for him to change his place, change his face and establish a sect. It's just that my heart doesn't allow it. I'm really too lazy to toss. It's like a road, if you walk it again it's safe to walk, but the scenery along the way is too similar. Feng Xuetao was a little envious of the relationship between Jiang Shangzhen and Cui Dongshan. On the mountain, it is not easy to find such like-minded friends who not only share weal and woe, but also work together for a long time. Feng Xuetao, whose name is Qingmi, was born in Yixio and his hometown is in Aizhou. He has known Lu Kaishan and Wei Shi for a long time, but they did not get along. Cui Dongshan said, "Yangji is now in the capital. She changed her identity, changed her name to Jingxing, and became the worship of the Dequan dynasty." Jiang Shangzhen said with a smile, "The capital of Yunyan Kingdom is not the night boat that took Brother Feng and Miyu on board?" Cui Dongshan shook his head and said, Xian and Daoist will do their best to help migrate waterways and mountains and peaks. Jiang Shangzhen laughed and said, It's all cultivation, it's always like this, knowing that there are tigers in the mountains I tend to go to the tiger mountains. Cui Dongshan raised his head and ate the iced lotus root starch and sipped. There are several good dreams in the basket of cherries in Tsingyi. Jiang Shangzhen said, Is there anything else that needs my intervention here? If not, I will go straight to Luopa Mountain. If I don't go, I will worry about the chief seat. That Mr. Imo is a formidable enemy. With Xiao Imo in Luopao Mountain, it's not price gouging. This made Jiang Shang really worried. Cui Dongshan said, Go, it will be too late if you don't go. Jiang Shangzhen nodded and said, It just so happens that the abbot of the Confucian temple, the 5 sacred mountains, was sealed and I can show off my skills. Cui Dongshan clicked his tongue and said, The fairy sister seemed to be whispering, Are you the old sect master Jiang? After Jiang Shangzhen finished eating lotus root starch, he began to lick the bowl with the bowl facing down and his face up. Just such a disgusting action made the fairies in the fairy port be sure that this person was definitely not Jiang Shangzhen. Cui Dongshan smirked and said, Do you think Ni Yuanzhang will take the initiative to find Sui right? Jiang Shangzhen nodded and said, This Lu Xing will probably go to the Exile Peak sweeping flower terrace. Cui Dongshan asked, What does the old Guanju think? Since Lu Xing has already been invited out of the Taoist temple, wouldn't it be good for Uafudi to add a sword repairer similar to the criminal officer Haosu? Yuan Hairpin suppress his practice. Jiang Shangzhen said, Old Guanju is notoriously eccentric. He probably doesn't think that an ascension cultivator is a stock. What is more important is those fellow Daoists who have the hope of finding a new path by themselves. Cui Dongshan nodded and said, Old Guanju likes new things and really hates the old-fashioned knowledge of exegesis elementary schools. Xiaomo because he was with Qin Pingan. Jinxiu Baijing is because there is Xiaomo in Luopao Mountain. Wild Taoting because there is a moody old blind man, will become a noble and tender Taoist. Standing up is the body of guilt because there are Confucian temple rules, to be precise, there is that little master. Otherwise, these unruly wild monsters, just speaking of fierceness, are not comparable to Qingtong, who are really a plain tree. Although Cui Dongshan had 2 bowls of lotus root starch, he was the first to finish it. When Jiang Shangzhen finished eating, Feng Shuatao still had half a bowl of lotus root starch left. Cui Dongshan laughed for no reason and said, A gentleman speaks his mind and a villain attacks his heart. Do I consider myself to be wise and dangerous and to make a name for myself? Then Brother Feng is reclusive and firm, cynical. Jiang Shangzhen said with a smile, I belong to memorizing ugliness and blogging, and I will follow what is wrong. Cui Dongshan said, Fortunately, we don't like to argue with hypocrisy. That's it, what can I do? Cui Dongshan waited until Feng Shuatao finished eating lotus root starch, took back the empty bowl and put it in his sleeve and said, I'm busy with business, you can do whatever you want. Jiang Shangzhen, in a green robe and a long robe, held the back with one hand and held the railing with the other, the jade tree facing the wind. Seeing this scenery, the female nuns on the shore were not sure about it again. Is it really Jiang Shangzhen? Cui Dongshan found Xing Yun and Lu Shui, 2 fellows of the same age, Jianxiu, but they looked like a young man and an old woman. Cui Dongshan clenched his fists and said with a smile, It's so late to come to see the 2 senior sword immortals, it's long overdue, forgive your sins. In the previous discussion in the house, Chong Chiu suggested that Miyu should come forward and invite the 2 sword cultivators to attend, but they declined, saying that they did not have such a habit. Even though Miyu spoke hard-heartedly on the side of the 2 old swordsmen, when he arrived at Cui Dongshan, he still helped to explain a few words. On the Jianqi Great Wall, only Xianxia had a tradition of participating in the city's discussions, and Jianxiu really had no tradition of attending. Xing Yun and Lu Shui just nodded to the young sect master. After all, the person who really interested the 2 sword cultivators was the last hidden officer of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. For example, there is the statement of Nanshou Qin, Baingwen and Zhou Mi's close disciple. Zhou Qinggao never concealed that he was an admirer of Qin Pingan. Cui Dongshan was on their side, following Jiang Shangzhen and Feng Shuatao. They were completely different from each other, and without the slightest smile he said straight to the point. On the Dragon Elephant Sword sect of Nampo Suzhou, there are now more swordsmen from the Great Wall of the Great Wall. Jade Purity Realm Guidu. His Taoist companion Ling Sun was born in a barbaric swordsmanship. Among them Gao Shuang. Compared to you, no matter what level of kendo you have reached or age, you are considered your predecessors. Said that I know Jianxiu, who traveled far and returned to his hometown, and Jinzi of Taishang Street, who used to be worshipped by the Qi family, and Jianxiu Zhusu, a woman in Xuanhu Street who once owned the private residence of Jianxian outside the city Jinggangpo. And Huang Ling and Xianyang of Baihaoan. In addition to a pair of masters and apprentices, the female sword cultivator Meiken. The disciple's name is Zhenze, but it is the sword cultivator of the Wild Demon clan. The Meiken is the Jade Pure Realm, but the disciple is Sword Immortal? I know so much for the time being. Xing Yun smiled and said, Sect Master Sia's gossip is very well informed. Lu Shui frowned and said nothing. It seemed that the young foreigner surnamed Qin had been reading their secret files in the summer palace. Cui Dongshan explained, Don't misunderstand the two seniors, these news are from my own search and have nothing to do with my husband. Miu nodded and said, I can testify. Except for Qi Tingji, it seems that these local sword cultivators of the Great Wall of Sword Qi have no idea of starting a sect in Haoran World. Cui Dongshan said, in addition to sincerely inviting the two seniors to serve as the worshippers of Qingping Sword Sect, I also hope that you can help introduce them at Huangling and Meikan. Huangling is now in the realm of Immortals, which belongs to the private sword of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. When he left his hometown, he was actually in the realm of Jade, and his relationship with Yu Qing and Sun Jiyuan was inseparable. This person likes to drink alcohol, likes to play long songs, and wears the sword Three Caves. It is said that this sword was passed down from a swordsman named Feng who traveled to the Great Wall of Sword Qi. The old master held this sword and killed many demons in the vast world. The sword energy condensed, and the long rope wrapped around the hilt of the sword was a demon-binding rope with one of the highest ranks in the world. The inscription on the sword is, The sun and the moon are in the sky, the old master of Shenzhou. And the swordsman named Feng who traded his sword for wine used to call himself, the old man of Taiping. As for Meiken, she belongs to the younger generation of this group of far-flung sword cultivators. She is very young. It is rumored that she was hurt by love and left the sad place of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Haoran World, but after a few years he returned to the Great Wall of Sword Qi and went south to the wild. Cui Dongshan said, after the two seniors became the named worshippers of Qingping Sword Sect, the colorful world will open again without delay. If you go to Feishing City, you can leave your name on the genealogy of Mi Xiefeng's patriarch, even if you don't leave. Doesn't matter if you go back. Of course, before this, one day you feel uncomfortable in the mountains, you can disown the relationship with Qingping Sword Sect at any time, we can only keep it and dare not force it. Mao Xiaodong, who does not do business and rectifies some things every day, is a palace secretary. It is a good thing to suggest that Haoran sect should not be linked to the colorful world in the Confucian temple. It's just that after the next time the colorful world opens, there will be no such good things again. If a Qi practitioner wants to go back and forth between the two worlds, it can only be done by an Ascension Realm cultivator. After you become sect worshippers, you will definitely go out to relax, go out to travel and use swords in Jiuzhou. In the vast world, in addition to the drizzle of the phoenix trees, there is also the swaying wind. The sky is full of clouds, the snow is covered, and each continent has its own scenery. In just 100 years you will not be bored. Haoran injustice there are many. As long as you use your swords to make up your mind, no matter how much mess you will make in the future, I, the suzerain, will be in charge of the bottom line. Hearing this, Lu Shui interrupted Cui Dongshan's rhetoric and the old woman said indifferently, Can you tell the truth? Even if Sect Master Cui is an immortal, is his tone a bit too loud? I just said that I will travel to other continents in the future and I will provoke me on the road. A soaring realm or a quarrel with a time-honored sect, and the result is a lawsuit all the way to the Confucian temple. Maybe Qin Pingon can get the bottom of it and you Cui Dongshan can really settle it? Or if you say something, let's go to Zhong Luopao Mountain. If Jianxiu, the hometown of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, said such words, she would believe it. According to Miyu, the young suzerain surnamed Cui was a Qi practitioner in the Immortal realm, and could be regarded as half a sword cultivator. Cui Dongshan said with a smile, It's really a problem and I definitely won't go to Luopeishan for help. As long as it's the next case, our Qingping Sword Sect can solve it on our own. I Cui Dongshan don't dare, it's inappropriate and I don't need to. Excuse me, sir. Xing Yun said with a smile, Sect Master Cui, you must not lack the skills of a sword cultivator, you just have the temper of a sword cultivator. I am a bad person, just get used to it. Lu Yong glanced at Xingyun and it was rare to say something pleasant to his ears. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, you don't need me to get used to your style of speaking, it's already good. Xingyun and Lu Shui looked at each other. This Cui seems to have a good appetite? The two sides said in their hearts, Xingyun, do you want to go to Luopao Mountain first, Sichen Pingon, and then decide whether to join Qingping Sword Sect? I don't think it's necessary, so there's no need to go around like this. Just like Cui Dongshan himself said, one day it's uncomfortable to stay and he'll just walk away. Then you go to contact Mei Qin? I'm here to find Huang Ling. Okay, there are also Jinzi and Jusu. Let's get in touch together. You won't be pulled over by Qi Tingji. Qi Tingji outside the battlefield will be an eyesore. Oh, jealous that other people's skins are better than you? Let's talk about business. Why are you talking about this? By the way, it seems that Xianyang has a good relationship with your master. He is now the guest of the Dragon Elephant Sword Sect. You can talk to him and see if you want to come here. To be worshipped. If Mei Kan and Zhu Su both come here, you must be very happy, right? Children are long in love, it's meaningless, it will only delay sword practice. The original words Zhou Qing told you back then? Lu Shui, are you finished yet? After Cui Dongshan said goodbye, Lu Shui did not leave the house immediately. Xingyun remembered an old story from his hometown. In fact, he and Gao Kue, who inherited swordsmanship and belonged to the Dragon King's lineage, were very close friends. They often stationed at the head of the city together. It's no exaggeration to die brothers. Gao Kue has a master's biography, but it is a pity that there is no better than nothing. Xingyun was born at the bottom of the market and grew up step by step. If you have an account book, don't think about defaulting on your account, in fact it's just talking about it. In his hometown, having a sword cultivator status is nothing, killing demons and accumulating military exploits is nothing, they are all normal things. Come and go. In the past, the large and small restaurants on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, which account room did not leave a lot of confused accounts that were owed and not repaid. It seems that there is only the small wine shop later. The 6 relatives do not recognize it and they insist that they will not take credit. Lu Shui has a mentor in her hometown. There are a lot of sword cultivators. She's quite beautiful in the Great Wall of Sword Qi. She still remembers that when she left her hometown, the youngest sword cultivator was an orphan who seemed to be called Han Rong. The child's aptitude for practicing swordsmanship is average, but his temper is quite stubborn. Every time he smells the smell of alcohol on the elders of the division, even if it is an old swordsman of the master's generation, the child will have a dark face. It seems that as long as other people drink, they are enmity with their children. That's why Lu Shui had a little impression of this child. Before Lu Shui asked Miyu a lot of questions. One of them asked Miyu if he knew about a sword repairer named Han Rong who was in Ascension City now. It's just that Miyu is a door in Chunfan Zhai and Summer Palace in Upside Down Mountain. He only knows the archives of Shangwujing and some Earth Immortal sword cultivators, so Miyu doesn't know if Han Rong followed him to Wuxia Tianxia Feishing City. In fact, Miyu knew that Lu Shui just wanted to ask if Han Rong was alive. So Miyu said that Lord Yingguan must know about this matter, and he could help Fei Jian send a letter to Jiasfeng to ask. But Lu Shui said it was unnecessary. Miyu has his own plans, so I still have to ask if Han Rong is already dead in the battle. With the reply from Lord Yingguan, Miyu will just pretend he doesn't know about it, but if he is still alive he will tell Lu Shui. Xingyun opened a pot of wine on the table, looked at Lu Shui. The old woman nodded. Xingyun arrived at 2 bowls of wine, and heard from Miyu that it was the most famous and best-selling drink on the Great Wall of Sword Qi. There are 3 grades of this kind of wine in the shop. The weakest one costs only 1 snow, and the other one sells 5 snows for money. The most expensive one is 10. It is also called Qingshan Divine Wine. A pot is sold on a first-come first-served basis. On the ferry there are only 2 kinds of Zuhedongshan wine. According to Mi's explanation, the most expensive Qingshan wine has long been sold out. He picked up the wine bowl and took a sip of the wine. Xingyun, who had never drunk wine in Howren World, mistakenly thought that he had drunk fake wine and asked, "How do you feel?" Lu Shui took a sip of the wine and frowned. It doesn't look like an authentic Xinjia wine. Xingyun twisted the jug and looked at the red paper and black characters on it. It really said, Zhuhai Dongtian wine. Xingyun said with a smile, "Is conscience caught by a dog?" After Xing Yun finished drinking a bowl, he opened another pot of wine that was said to be priced at 5 snow money. The word, superior, was written in small letters, and next to it there was another sentence, Xianxia mellow wine, happy to meet each other. Xing Yun poured another bowl, smashed his mouth and nodded. Just the taste of the wine, even if you dare to sell 5 snows for money, the dog won't take it. There was a knock on the door. Miyu was in the corridor outside the door and asked with a smile, "Is it inconvenient? Didn't I bother you?" Xing Yun said angrily, "I didn't lock the door again." Miyu just pushed the door open without crossing the threshold and said with a smile, "Lu Shui, there is a message from Lord Yingguan. Han Rong is now in the Dragon Gate realm in Feishing City, and he is a swordsman from the Chuanfu lineage." Lu Shui nodded with a straight face. Miyu glanced at the 2 jugs of wine opened on the table and said with a smile, "Master Yingguan also said that Han Rong is a regular customer of his wine shop. As long as he doesn't have to go to the city, he drinks 2 jugs of wine twice a day in the morning and evening. Lei can't be beaten. He is a poor who kills him if he is short of drinks. He only drinks 1 piece of bamboo sea cave heaven wine with snow money every time. Drinking on the roadside. I also like to drink alcohol, but Han Rong's drinking capacity is good as well as wine. There is a mantra, the amount of alcohol is innate, can't be practiced. Occasionally invite him to drink good wine." Han Rong just said no, said, "I don't like to owe favors." The old woman squinted and smiled, but she was complaining about Miyu's extravagance, and said that you don't need to ask the hidden official, you have to be busy. Listen, it seems that this is the first time the old woman has called Qin Pingon as a hidden official? Miyu smiled and said, "Lord Yingguan finally said something." Han Rong wrote a sentence on the nothing sign above the wine shop. "Xing Yun, would you like to listen to it?" Xing Yun waved his hand. "No." Lu Shui said curiously, "Tell me about it." Miyu smiled and said, "Xing Yun doesn't know what to do, but if he dares to go back to his hometown, I will reward him with a big mouth." Xing Yun laughed instead of being angry. A little in the Dragon Gate realm, his realm is not high and his tone is not small. Miyu turned around and left. Lu Shui suddenly pointed to a pot of wine on the table and asked, "I didn't write my name, what's it called?" Miyu stopped and turned his head, glanced at the jug and said with a smile, "It's a kind of local shochu called Yaba Lake wine." Miyu went straight away and the door closed on its own. After a long silence in the room, Lu Shui lifted the mud seal of the jug of wine, shook it, lowered his head and sniffed again. "Good name." Xing Yun twitched the wine bowl with 2 fingers, and then tapped the table lightly, signaling to pour the wine. At the wine table, the sword fairy is to the wine, and the old woman is to the young man. The people's state of mind is absolutely clear. I have been away from home for thousands of years, but my heart is still young. A group of people rushed to Yulindu, Zhongkue and Ghost Yujin. Li Baoping, Jing Yugan talking about Yingzhou. This trip together went to many places and visited a small half of Tongyi's Hao. They were not in a hurry to board the Tongyin ferry. Under Eugene's suggestion, they first found a restaurant near the ferry port to eat fresh and pickled Don River. Zhongkue really couldn't eat this, so he ordered another portion from Li Baoping. Hot pot. Zhongkue had an oil paper umbrella in his hand, which he had previously picked up at the foot of a mountain. Nowadays, Yulindu does not worry about paying customers. Every day more people come to the capital of Yunyan Kingdom than go. The restaurant business is good, and the shop assistant is not a diligent person. With one mouth, the fat man said angrily, "The eyes are on the buttocks and they only recognize the clothes and not the person." Back then this kind of thing was not a good thing for a jester and he was dragged out and beheaded twice. Xing Yu dryly said, "Senior Gusu, calm down. They all said that the prime minister can hold a boat in his stomach, let alone a former emperor." Tan Yingzhou actually always wondered that this fat man who always likes to use the word widow on his lips seems to be a rather elegant character besides being ugly. Walking along the way, reciting poems and writing opposites, copying ancient monuments, knocking iced tea, simmering taro and chewing plum blossoms with shui. A fat man who is clearly called Eugene but calls himself Suzhou and is good at everything. The boy in white through his sleeves swaggered into the restaurant and slapped the fat man on the back of the head. When I saw Cui Dongshan, Li Baoping and Jing Yuqian, who were also from the same line of Wenxing, had different names. Jing Yuqian called a little brother but Li Baoping called a big brother. If someone else called Cui Dongshan like this, Cui Dongshan would have been unhappy for a long time. If you have to say a word, you are the senior brother and your whole family is the senior brother. But since Li Baoping shouted like that, Cui Dongshan endured it. Li Baoping said, "Little master set a date. Let us all go to Luopa Mountain." Cui Dongshan looked blank. "Sir didn't tell me about this." Li Baoping smiled and said, "It's not surprising, you are the proud disciple of the little uncle." Cui Dongshan smiled dryly, "Yes, yes." On the Tongyin ferry, after reminiscing about the old with Qing Tong, Nan Daoist and Qing Tong came to the bow together to enjoy the prosperous night scene of Yulinda's lights. In fact, they didn't have much friendship before, just like Qing Tong said. Nan Daoist belongs to the younger generation on his side and Yangji's side. Yangji was fine, he stayed in the wilderness 10,000 years ago, and he and Taoting, the ancestor who drove the mountain dog, often had an intersection, but Qing Tong was assigned to Tongye continent. Daoist Nin sighed with emotion for no reason. "After all, it's different from the wild, I won't say no." Qing Tong remembered something. "Daoist friend really chased down Dong Sanging?" Daoist Nengsu said with a smile. "The hero doesn't mention the bravery of the past. Any pursuit is just a misunderstanding. If you don't fight, you don't know each other. It's just a matter of sympathy." In fact, the truth is that Dong Sanging was in the wild hinterland back then. He slashed an Ascension Realm demon empress, cut off the opponent's head, put it in a bamboo basket and brought it back to the Great Wall of Sorchi. Dong Sanging was seriously injured not long after he got out of a siege. On the way back home, Taoting saw an opportunity and wanted to go up and take a bite. After all, the old blind man doesn't care. In addition, Dong Sanging, who was carrying a bamboo basket on the road at that time, had to hide his breath, and Taoting vaguely remembered that young swordsman. When he went to the wild hinterland, he seemed to be just an ant-like Jindan swordsman. After 100 years, the realm can be where to go. Do you want to take a bite and eat a nascent soul? Taoting didn't know if he could plug his teeth. At that time, Dong San was even in a hurry to hurry, and was too lazy to entangle with Taoting too much, so Taoting shook his arms a little with prestige. When Taoting was about to use a few trump cards, the old blind man reminded him that the young man is a swordsman of the Ascension Realm. "You don't recognize him, Dong Sanging, but the head in the bamboo basket, you must know each other. Want to get a bunch of buddies?" Tao Ting was so frightened that he apologized to the young Jianxiu surnamed Dong on the spot. Thinking of thanking the old blind man sincerely, "It is rare to be kind and reminding me about this." As a result, I saw a neighbor standing beside the old blind man who rarely visited Shirwanda Mountain, Qin Qingdu. After Qin Qingdu put his hands down at that time, he just said with a smile, "Taoting Road is friendly and powerful." The old blind man told Taoting to roll away, don't get in the way. If Taoting was granted amnesty, he hurried away. The old blind man said, "If you don't kill that monster sword cultivator, Dong Sanging won't have to hurt the root of the Tao, and his future kendo achievements will definitely not be low. When Dong Sanging is in the 14th realm, you can relax a little." Separated? The implication is that it is a pity to help the family make a name for the so-called city head lettering. This transaction of Dong Sanging is not worth it. Qin Qingdu smiled and asked, "If you don't kill that beast, is Dong Sanging still Dong Sanging?" The old blind man was silent for a long time and then he said, "Thanks to swordsmen who need to be pure." Qin Qingdu smiled and said, "So you are destined to not be a sword cultivator?" The old blind man asked a doubt in his heart that he had accumulated for many years. "That guy, what's going on? Some people who can be killed but they don't kill them. There is absolutely no need to ask about the sword like the master of Bixiao, but he takes the initiative. Run to Luobaotin to provoke." It was a strange sword cultivator who couldn't even see his face clearly. Qin Qingdu said casually, "I like to hide the head and hide the tail in a gourd." This guy was so arrogant back then and he didn't seem to like anyone. Long Jun and Yuan Xiang who sincerely asked him about swordsmanship, he was always there. I didn't care. I asked Guanzhong if he could see his Tao roots and swordsmanship veins, and he smiled and didn't say anything. "I remember meeting me once. Do you know what this guy did?" The old blind man asked curiously. "How?" Qin Qingdu smiled and said, "When passing by, this guy deliberately slowed down, glanced at me and then patted his shoulder." The old blind man became more and more puzzled. "Is there a deep meaning?" Qin Qingdu angrily said with a smile, "I thought about it at first, but the result was that I was the first to guess the other person's mind. There is a fart deep meaning. You probably told me that your swordsmanship, Qin Qingdu, only reaches my shoulders." Sighed. Back then the old blind man rarely had a smile. Miyu sat on a railing of the Tongyin ferry so that there would be no movement at the fish-scale ferry, and seeing him was like seeing a ghost, so he deliberately chose a secluded place. Miyu took off the Haoyang sword-raising gourd that was usually used as a wine jug from his waist, and it contained several kilograms of Duba Lake wine. Jinshu Xingyun, who was already here, was running water. In addition, there are Gao Shuang Zhusu Jinzi Guadu Huangling Shenyang Mekan. The Mishue Peak of Qingping Sword Sect has a flat stone wall that is as steep as a sword. In the future, sword cultivators can engrave text on the cliff, and the content is arbitrary according to their preferences. After thinking about it, Miyu didn't know what he could write. Duckweed gathers and disperses in a guest town. Miyu silently drinks a pot of mute wine. Green and verdant vegetation, old people year after year, day and night acacia. In Qingxing country there are many shops in Jihuadu bustling with people. The two groups of people gathered together by dispersing. Previously, Pei Qian couldn't resist Han Qiao's persuasion, so he chose two quirky magic tools that were slightly fat and powdery, and planned to give them to Nuanshu and Millet. Han Qiaosa looked down, and after paying the bill she asked who Pei Qian was going to give it to. After getting the answer, the immortal woman from Baidi City simply took out two magic weapons from her sleeves, one with swords and grasses. The glazed porcelain pen holder, a jade seat in the shape of a nine-tailed fox, said that the first two were given by you and the two were my gifts to the two little girls. Before we arrived at Luopao Mountain, the gifts came first. This it is said that the soldiers and horses should go ahead without food and forage. During this period of time the military books were not read in vain. Qin Pingon said, "He'll have a small chat with fellow Daoist Lian Xuan." Ziwu Meng glanced at Guken. Guken was indifferent. Ziwu Meng slandered in his heart, "Big pig's hoofs, men are unreliable." He had to walk with the young hidden officer who had the appearance of a boy with a sword on his back. After they walked a distance, Gukan, who stayed where he was, reminded, "Don't spy on the conversation over there." Han Qiao nodded with a smile. After all, it's Mr. Qin who can let senior brother go out and entertain guests in person. I know them well. Qin Pingon said, "Since you stay by Gukan's side, don't come up with bad ideas, don't get involved when things happen, and try to make big things into small things." Ziwu Meng gave 1,000 blessings. The hidden official has an order, and the effectiveness should be remembered in the heart, and I dare not forget it for a moment. Qin Pingon didn't have to guess, he knew she wouldn't take it seriously and said, "Don't think I'm being troublesome, don't forget that Gukan is Mr. Zheng's direct disciple, and within this 100-year period, you will be Gukan's nominal maidservant. Getting along day and night, the only thing to do is actually very simple, that is to protect yourself, try your best to save your own life, and don't be regarded as an abandoned child by Mr. Zheng crossing the river and demolishing the bridge in the future. The Jade Purity realm, even if it is the Ascension realm, will still be unable to eat and walk around." Ziwameng looked astonished. "Is it appropriate for you to say that Jing Juzhong?" Qin Pingon said to himself, "Since you didn't participate in the war that invaded Hauran, you are a new face in the wild world, so there is no old account to turn over. This is a good thing. Yesterday's things are like yesterday's death, and today's things are like today's life. How about tomorrow? The Kung Fu is only for each day in the past 100 years. Mr. Zheng is one of the best people in the world to settle accounts. You stay by Gukan's side and do your best to help him establish the next sect. It's not that there is no chance of blessings in disguise. The 100-year period is valid, and I believe that Mr. Zheng will not treat you badly." Ziwu Meng smiled and said, "I understand what the hidden official means, but there are actually two things. First, don't make trouble and draw a clear line with the Ziwu Meng in the wild world, and second, don't cause trouble for Gukan. Under the premise of non-compliance, accumulate a little bit of credit, and in the future I will be rewarded by City Lord Zheng." Qin Pingon said, "With me here, when the 100-year contract expires, Gukan will not arbitrarily find a way to kill the donkey and slaughter you. Do you understand?" Ziwu Meng said decisively, "Yes. Why can't I understand? I can. In other words, it is easier to understand. In the future, if Qin Pingon insists on killing Ziwu Meng, Gukan, her master, will not stop her." Qin Pingon said, "I will travel to the Divine Continent in the Middle Earth in a short time. I will definitely go to Baidi City. If I have the opportunity to meet Mr. Zheng, I will talk about you." Having said that, Qin Pingon rubbed his eyebrows, really having a headache. The 14th realm cultivator is the imaginary enemy, and most dare not have Jing Juzhong. It is not a joke. In the wild world, you don't have to be afraid of a Yuan Ingjing sword cultivator engraved on the front of the city. But in Howren world you have to be more afraid of such people. This is called doing as the locals do. The truth here, I will ponder it more after I realize it, fellow Daoist. Qin Pingon turned around and said, after talking about the matter, we will go back the same way. I wish you all a smooth journey. Seeing Gu Kan and the others again, Qin Pingon smiled and said, I just got the news that Lu Xianying may have a drink and we will be his best man together. Gu Kan nodded with a smile. As long as Lu Xianying has no objection and doesn't think I will lose his share as the best man, I have no objection. Qin Pingon glared at him and said, stop saying a few bastards. Gu Kan is a little aggrieved. The three of them have the best relationship with Qin Pingon. In short, if Qin Pingon was not always the peacemaker in his hometown, if Gu Kan likes to hold revenge, then he is Lu Xianying. Generous. Just as careful, Gu Kan and Lu Xianying have had dozens of fights. Gu Kan seemed to ask casually, is the wine set in the town or? Qin Pingon said, Lu Xianying said that his hometown and Longquan sword sect will each have a show. Gu Kan nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Want me to take the initiative to ask about this? You Lu Xianying want to eat farts. Shouldn't you be the one sending the invitation, giving a word? If you can't find me, Gu Kan, will you not send a letter to Baidi City? A letter from Feijin can cost you a few dollars, Sect Master Lu. Han Xiaosa reminded, Mr. Qin, don't forget about collecting military books. Qin Pingon smiled and said, I promise to send books to Baidi City every 6 months for the next few years. The most recent one will be on the day of Guyu this year. Immortal Master Han will just wait and receive the books. Han Xiao nodded and said, I can take 500 Guyu money as a deposit first, and I can give it to Mr. Qin now. Qin Pingon shook his head and said, no, friendship is friendship and business is business. Immortal Master Han will talk about it after receiving the book. When the money and goods are finished, it will be more refreshing. This is not because I am worried that there are too many books on the art of war sent to Beidasheng for the first time, and 500 books are not enough. In addition to their own lotus root blessed land, there are also those immortal mansions with private blessings, such as Jiang Shangzhen's Cloud Cave Blessed Land, Qingtan Blessed Land where Han Zhoujin is located, and Fulu Baishan etc. Qin Pingon will be in town, send a letter asking for a military book. Anyway, a copy will do. Of course, all the military books that can be collected are downhill first. As for the quality, Qin Pingon will personally check. This kind of slow-flowing business cannot break Qin Ping's golden signboard of the old man without deceitful burdens. Qin Pingon said, I will go to Beijing with Pei Qian and you will just board the boat. Gu Kan smiled and said, that when Xin is currently recovering from his injuries in Qingqian Taoist Temple. Now this martial arts master is rather pitiful. It is difficult to hold his breath and concentrate. Before leaving, I suggest that he might as well give up his qi training and concentrate on martial arts. Climbing to the top, since the spirit is so high and the aptitude is so good, maybe there is a chance to find a place on Pei Qian's side. Pei Qian smiled knowingly, speaking so destructively, no wonder Gu Kan felt pleasing to the eye. Qin Pingon wondered, I was at the gate of Hahuan Mountain before and Pei Qian's punch was not too heavy. Pei Qian nodded and said, it's not heavy. Gu Kan said in a heartfelt voice, in the wild battle among the opponents, Jian Xiu Lubai didn't perform very well, but my intuition tells me that she is very dangerous. Qin Pingon nodded. After the two sides separated, Qin Pingon and Pei Qian smiled and said, if you walk through the capital, you should go back to Luopa Mountain first. Our disciples of Wenxing will gather together in the near future. Exiled Xianfeng in Xindu Mountain on the other side of Sweeping Flower Platform on the right side of Sui Sui, he cleared his mind, put a Qixin sword into its sheath, and rode the wind to the imitation treasure beach at the foot of the mountain, bowing. Disciple Sui right side, see Mr. The old man standing beside the thatched hut on the shoal bowed his hands and returned the salute. The Jiang clan's scavenger in the Cloud Cave Blessed Land and Ni Yuanzhang has seen fellow Daoist Sui. The old boatman goes by the pseudonym Ni Yuanzhang, holds a bamboo wormwood in hand, punting a boat on the Huanggeji side, and doing a small business every day for one person and one snow to spend money to cross the river. Mr. Sui wanted to meet each other or not, but the right side of Sui didn't care about it. He just asked curiously, since Mr. successfully ascended, he has been staying in the blessed land of Cloud Cave to devote himself to cultivating Taoism? On Huang Heji's side, the matter of killing mosquitoes on the river, But what did Mr. This is called knowingly asking, and there is nothing to ask for. The right side of the Sui dynasty insisted on switching from pure martial arts to practicing immortal swordsmanship. Qin Pingan, the owner of the picture scroll, did not stop her. She was taken to Xinzhuan Peak by the old master Sun Yuan and became a direct disciple of the ancestor of Yugui. He once had a lot of conflicts with the then main sword Xie Wei Ying of Jui Peak. Regarding the Yunku Blessed Land, which is nominally owned by Yuguizong and actually controlled by Jiang's family, even if it is close at hand, the right side of Sui has never set foot there. She has heard a lot of rumors and anecdotes about the Blessed Land. A drunken sword immortal spit out sword pills, and Jiang Shangzhan mosquito. Such a beautiful talk on the mountain has been passed down as mysterious, just because it is related to Jianxiu. The right side of Sui is particularly concerned. Later, Jiang Shangzhan disclosed all the inside information to Sui right side, and made it clear by pouring beans in the bamboo tube. Just like what Ni Yuanzhan said to a young man in white, it is better not to know if you know it. The two masters and apprentices after many years are in a foreign land. One is punting a boat in the blessed land of the Cloud Cave, and the other once practiced in the Xinzhuan Peak of the Jade Grey Zone. In this long-awaited reunion, Sui Right asked the question because she was worried that there was something wrong with her husband, so she chose some good words as her opening remarks. Otherwise, from the right side of Sui, with his husband's aptitude, he should have been an Ascension Realm Sword Immortal standing on the top of the mountain long ago, and his achievements in the Great Tao will definitely not be lost to that similar criminal officer Hao Su. Ni Yuanzhang's real name in Lotus Flower Blessed Land is Lu Xing, and the word is Shizhou. This scholar, in his hometown, is not only a teacher on the right side of Sui, but also a preacher of her martial arts and swordsmanship. At this moment, the old man in the Confucian shirt was wearing a feathered crane cloak that was both a robe and a cage, with a three-legged golden toad lying on his shoulders. Jiang Shangzhan made several bids and tried to buy Jin Chan with Ni Yuanzhang, but he failed. Ni Yuanzhang laughed at himself. How can you talk about a successful ascension just being thrown out of the Lotus Flower Blessed Land by the master of the Bixiao Cave, no longer sitting in the well and watching the sky, never wanting to leave the well and even feel that the world is big and small, and the Tao's heart is not pure. The matter of Daoist ascension is still far away, and it has been a long time in the air. Previously, Qin Pingan and the others traveled together to visit the blessed land of the Cloud Caves. When they were crossing the river by boat, Ni Yuanzhan was seen through by a white-clothed boy who was a Shinto Taoist. To be precise, it was the two sides who each revealed the other's roots and feet, which was related to the origin of the skins they used to show people. The physique of the old man Ni Yuanzhang is the remains of an ancient great monk whose real body is a crane. An Chui Dongshan's youthful skin was once an old dragon of ancient Shu who could roam the galaxy. For cultivators who pursue qi refinement and longevity, a certain knot in their hearts that cannot be solved for a long time is often the place where they are concerned about doomsday. If it wasn't for Ni Yuanzhang now at the crumbling and unbroken bottleneck of jade purity, in fact, the old man was not willing to come to Shindu Mountain, and took the initiative to meet the proud student of the former blessed land on the right side of Sui. In addition, Ni Yuanzhan was even more worried that the right side of Sui, who was already a swordsman in the Yuan Yingjing realm, would retreat in the future, and the demons he saw would be himself. After all, the image and status of the master Lu Xing in the heart of the student Sui right side will only be higher than the inner magic method she encounters. Then we will meet once, we will end our relationship, and we will practice our own cultivation from now on. The moonlight was like snow and the cool breeze was breezy. Walking together on Luobaotan, Lu Xing asked, "Have you ever met the old Guanju of the Taoist temple in the East China Sea, that is, the Bixiao Cave owner of the ancient Taoist temple located in Luobaotan?" Sui nodded on the right and said, "I have seen it once. The old Guanju went to Luopao Mountain before traveling far away to Qingming. At that time the old Guanju also asked the right side of Sui to send a message to Qin Pingan, saying that it didn't matter whether the Jindingwen survived or died, but that Shao Yuanran must be kept. The meaning of Lao Guanzu's words cannot be more obvious. Qingping sword sect can fight and kill with Jindingwen, and it doesn't matter if they demolish the other party's patriarchal hall, but the only thing that cannot be broken is Shao Yuanran's Dao cultivation." Lu Xing said, "There is a Taoist priest named Chunyang in Beipingzu. He is not well known in the world. Taoist monk Lu Yen is only on the top of the mountain in later generations, and is known as the Golden Core. The Taoist priest once visited the blessed land of lotus flowers. When I was young, by chance I happened to have a relationship with this pure young Taoist and gave me a beautiful dream of Huangliang. When Lu Xing was on his way to Beijing to take the exam, in an inn on the left side of HD Road, he encountered a wandering Taoist who was resting there. It was after that Lu Xing gradually had a higher vision, not limited to the three immortals of scholars and the summit of those who learned martial arts. On the right side of Sui, she was born in a wealthy family in the Blessed Land. The Lu family and the Sui clan are family friends. Her name was taken with the help of Lu Xing, who is a family school teacher. It is the opposite of Lu Xing, who claims to be HD Dao's Warren. It is to hope that this student will be able to find a new way in the future and establish his own door. However, Lu Xing's far-reaching name was quite regretful at the beginning, and he gave a private comment, "It's a pity to reveal it." Sui said on the right, "This Taoist Chunyang has also been to Luopao Mountain and has a good relationship with Qin Pingan. I have to admit that Qin Pingan's elder relationship has always been good." Lu Xing smiled and said, "I don't think it's strange that you can successfully turn into a sword cultivator, and Shifu has the physique to go mountain climbing." With the same four people in the picture scroll, Wei Xian and Lu Baixiang were doomed to fail. Sui said on the right, "It's all thanks to Mr. Lu Xing shook his head and said, Master leads the door to practice as a person, so you don't have to be humble. If you talk about martial arts qualifications, of course you are the first-class figure in the history of your hometown, and you can enter the top 10. When it comes to Xinxing, you are better than you are. Ranked among the top 3. In my opinion, it can be tied with the later noble son Zhou Xian and the Hushan faction Yushini. The three of you are no different. Every era has its own number one person in the world. With a limited life expectancy, there will be many number one person in the world. Zhou Xian is the master of martial arts in the Lotus Flower Blessed Land. In the battle of the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, he alone killed the rest of the 9 people in the world. Among them, the 2 famous female masters and even Zhou Lian's admirers did not see how the martial arts maniac Zhou Lian showed mercy. Sui said on the right, "Actually, we are not as good as you, sir." Lu Xing was non-committal and said, "The old owner of this immortal sloughing vestment on me has an extraordinary background. He was the first yellow crane in the world to ascend to the Tao. He was only half a step away from entering the 14 realms. The master of Shaodong is called a fellow Taoist. Before the retreat, he seemed to have sensed the danger of the retreat. He secretly went to Luobao Beach. After that, the master of Bixiao helped guard the gate. After the failure, he left behind this crane cloak and a flawless golden elixir. The master of Bixiao Cave took care of it on his behalf, and according to his promise, helped him find a suitable disciple who could inherit the mantle of the Dharma." Sui asked on the right, "That's Mr. Lu Xing said with a complicated expression, "It can only be said that it used to be." The right side of Sui wanted to get to the bottom of it so as to know the crux of why her husband's realm was stagnant, but she was worried about touching his sadness and she hesitated for a while. However, Lu Xing had already changed the subject and said with a smile, "Now I am the official guest secretary of the Huangliang sect in Beipingzu, and I plan to accept disciples there in the future to preach. This time I return to Tongye sect because I want to discuss with Jiang Shangzhen and resign. The matter of the guest of honor." Sui smiled and asked, "Is it a junior brother or a junior sister?" Lu Xing said, "There may not be a teacher-apprentice status. That Mengliang Kingdom is also the place where the pure Yang Lu Yen formed the elixir. As for the ancient golden elixir hidden between the cliffs of Huanggeji, Cui Dongshan first guessed that it was given to the right of Sui by Ni Yuanzhang, and Jiang Shangzhen guessed that it was left to Jindingwen Xiao Yuanran. Smart people guess wrong. Lao Guanju left a clue to Ni Yuanzhang, which was in the country of Mengliang. Lu Xing broke the secret in one sentence. The Dequan dynasty was able to keep the country uninterrupted, in addition to the strategizing and dispatching of troops by the female emperor Yao Jinji, but also because there is an inconspicuous well in Mirage City, which is connected with the Taoist temple of the East China Sea. In short, it is a wild world and it is necessary to give face to the Bixiao cave master who is very old, has a high realm and has a worse temper. And this old Guanz's earliest dojo, the ruins of Luobaotan, is now in the Jindingguandaji in the north. Before going to Aquarius Island, Lu Xing secretly walked to Jinding Temple, found Xiao Yuanran, sent a long-lost Taoist book, and then gave the bamboo wormwood to the young Jindan. Xiao Yuanran of Jindingwen on the way to practice, Compared to the monks in his hometown, whether it is Jiang Shangzhen who is notorious, but has successfully practiced, or Huang Ting, the female crown of Taiping Mountain who has a deep blessing, Xiao Yuanran can be said to be smooth sailing, making a fortune in a muffled voice. In fact, he didn't do anything, just lay quietly and enjoy himself. First, together with the master, he served as the worshipper of the Daquan dynasty. Later, the war that led to the sinking of one continent did not affect the Jindingwen from beginning to end. It's just that Jindingwen deliberately concealed this matter. Xiao Yuanran is like stepping on luck all the way, constantly taking advantage. Looking at it separately, it is not a big blessing, but it is better than a stable practice. Now he is already a Yuaning cultivator. What's more, this person got an amulet that seemed to be pasted on his forehead by the old master without knowing it. The pair of master and apprentice walking on Luobaetan. Neither is easy. The so-called is not simple, not only that they have all been the number one person in the world in the lotus flower blessed land. Lu Xing, who was Mr. Shizhou, and Brother Shizhou by Lu Qin, was indeed the first half-chi trainer in blessed land to have the prototype of Taoism. As the owner of Cloud Cave blessed land, Jiang Shangzhen had some candid conversations with him. Jiang Shangzhen, also known as Zhou Fei from the Spring Tide Palace in Blessed Land, and later Chief Zhou of Luopao Mountain, once reviewed countless historical books and secret records in Ahua Blessed Land, and first came to an astonishing conclusion that had been sealed for a long time. He was proficient in the knowledge of 3 religions and 100 schools. The Mr. Shizhou, who was only limited by the inferior rank of the original Blessed Land, failed to ascend successfully. So Jiang Shangzhen joked that if Yu Zhini saw Ni Yuanpin he would have to call master. Before Lu Xing's death there was an unknown question, and the object of the question was the old Guanzhou. That's why Lao Guanzhou was invited out of the Blessed Land and came to Tonggishao with the Taoist Chunyang. There was a fairy-like city on the crane in the Daquan dynasty of Tonggishao. And Lu Xing was on the right side of the disciple Sui who was taught by him, and she also achieved a feat that was unprecedented. She was alone, and when she reached the top of the martial arts she actually learned half of the martial arts in the world. In later generations, Zhu Lian and Ding Ying, although the martial arts realm was obviously higher than that of Sui right side, they were not able to accomplish this. In the end, on the right side of Sui she acted as a pure martial artist, but she was like a female sword fairy flying up with her sword. She seemed to hand out 3 swords to the whole world, and she was finally defeated. To use Lu Chen's metaphor, it is like the first autopsy of Lotus Flower Blessed Land. The soaring and defeat of Sui right side is like a proof that the way of heaven cannot be violated, and it is difficult for people to defeat the sky. After that, the martial arts warriors in the world seemed to no longer have the courage to compete with God, and only wandered around in the world. Lu Xing asked with a smile, "Why should I keep the books that I left for you in the past and keep them secret? Are you afraid that someone will compete with you for the best in the world?" Previously, Headmaster Lu had a high regard for this Mr. Shizhou. After all, Lu Xing tried to reclaim the sea with the pure infuriating qi of a warrior, and finally created a heart-to-heart, groping out a way of cultivating qi for longevity. The road. It turned out that Lu Xing was on the way to practice martial arts and swordsmanship. He fished out of water from all the official books and unofficial history in the history of the Blessed Land. He collected some scattered Taoist tactics and spiritual methods one after another, pieced together the fragments, and finally listed a few mountaineering roads. I wrote a few reading notes and handed them over to my disciple Sui Right. I hope she can go a step further, carry forward it, spread branches and leaves, pass it on, and make a new difference outside the martial arts path. As a result, Sui Right is devoted to swordsmanship. She is not interested in this immortal method, but she has not been able to obtain its form, and she has not been able to truly embark on the journey of qi refining. Sui face on the right side was embarrassed and remained silent. She is indeed selfish, but she is not worried about who will compete with her for the first place. She just doesn't want outsiders to read books. The right side of Sui did not destroy the books at first. After she failed to fly up by sword, the books were interspersed in Sui collection, and later generations went through all the way. In the end, only less than half of the manuscripts and secrets fell into the hands of Yu Zhini of the Hushan faction. Contrary to the right side of Sui, Yu Zhini, who is a talented person from the sky, belongs to the divine will, but unfortunately it is incomplete. But with his own efforts, Yu Zhini still became the first qi trainer in the true sense of Ahua Fudi. rejuvenation, flying with the sword, immortal pose. So to a certain extent, it can be said that there is an invisible line of Tao inheritance in the blessed land of lotus flowers, which originated from Lu Yen, the real person of Chunyang, passed on to Lu Xing, and then passed on to the right side of Sui and finally blossomed and fruited on Yuzhenya's side. Although the incense is flickering and looming, it is always on the line. When Sui came to Howren World on the right side and became a chi trainer, he really knew the weight of those books left by his husband. Lu Xing smiled and said, "I want everything, but I can't chew too much. Really is useless." "I'm a scholar." Sui asked cautiously on the right, "Mistress Realm?" Lu Xing said, "In the final analysis, my own Taoism is not tough enough, which led to the stagnation in the Jade Pure Realm for too long. I didn't know a certain truth until Jiang Shangzhen reminded me last time. The authorities are obsessed with bystanders, but it is too late." However, Lu Xing has been away from the Blessed Land for so many years, but he has not been able to become an immortal. After the failure of the inquiries that no third person knew about the inside story, Lu Xing, who died once, was in a daze, and when he opened his eyes again he saw a tall old Taoist priest sitting on both sides. In the endless galaxy look down on the world together. The old Taoist who claimed to be the master of Bixiao Cave said that his aptitude for cultivating the Tao was actually quite good. Replace the body and continue to practice in a place full of spiritual energy. There is an agreement. The next time the two sides meet, if Lu Xing can break the cage with his own swordsmanship, he will be qualified to be worthy of him as a Daoist friend. That golden pill is a parting gift. It is your Lu Xing's possession and there is no need for it anymore. Don't do it, pass it on to others. It's a pity that Lu Xing was in the blessed land of the Cloud Cave. Although he stepped into the Jade Pure Realm step by step, he was still a sword cultivator and he never broke the innate confinement of the Hechuang robe. The robe is like a hole in the sky, just like a sentence of white poetry, and the avenue is like a blue sky. I can't help it. This is a kind of test deliberately made by the old guard. If Lu Xing can break the restriction of a robe and stand up after breaking it, he will be able to leave the Taoist ancient well. Lu Xing is no longer a frog at the bottom of the well, so he is qualified to be recognized by the master of Bixiao Cave. A Taoist friend. It's a pity that Lu Xing was in a prison, wearing a robe, guarding an ancient golden pill, with a three-legged golden toad with strong fortune lying on his shoulders. In fact, it was Lu Xing that year, and he suggested that Jiang Shangzhen take Lu Fang, his best friend on the mountain, to take a trip to the blessed land of lotus flowers. As a result, there was a spring tide palace and a bird's-eye view peak Lu Fang on the blessed land, but Lu Fang still failed to explore the love, and never really achieved the death of his heart and life after death. On the Cloud Cave blessed land side, Jiang Shangzhen had a conversation with Ni Yuanzhang. "I want to borrow Mr. S' sword now, and it will be dark and dark." "There is no such sword, it is definitely not a fool. You are the sword." At that time Lu Xing didn't understand the true meaning, and only thought that Jiang Shangzhen complained that he had delayed his good friend Lu Fang's practice, so he deliberately cursed people, but Lu Xing was so smart he quickly chewed the aftertaste. Jiang Shangzhen's statement has a profound meaning, saying that the physique of his Ni Yuan pin is exactly the abandoned sword that Lao Guanju personally forged and gave up halfway. Therefore, for the remaining half, Ni Yuanzhen needs to cast and refine it himself, and continue to refine the sword with his body. One day when it is perfected, Lu Xing will naturally be able to break the cage of the robe. The cultivator of the 14th realm in the Qingming world, the female crown Wuzhou, is walking a path of all things can be refined. Lu Xing, a scholar in the blessed land of lotus blossoms, is equivalent to opening up two avenues of refining qi and refining things. But the good fortune tricks people and they all give up halfway. Lu Xing glanced at the long sword on the right side of Sui and smiled. The word longevity reverse the order is growth. The golden robe of Qin Pingon obtained from Jialonggu, and the Qixin sword lent to Sui right side. The greatest magic is that it can continuously improve the rank. And the greatest beauty of that golden pill is that it allows a Qi practitioner to create an extra golden pill of extremely high rank out of thin air. Obtaining this golden pill is seamless, and the cultivator is like opening up a real cave with many more natal caves, and can also inherit the complete Dao line of a great cultivator of the Ascension realm. Under the 14th realm, who would not be envious of Qi practitioners facing such a golden pill? Lu Xing was a little sad. "I can't help myself, I'm no longer a pure warrior." In the end, Lu Xing said with a smile, "The sunset is white, it's Chao Ci." The tide is coming, the world is green. Qin Pingon. A village school in Suian County, Yenzhou Prefecture. Because now there is an unexpected student Ningji and the disciple Zhou Xian always builds a floor in the kitchen. It is not unreasonable. Qin Pingon is in the village next door. Both surnamed Qin and the church name is Xinyutang, renting a house. There is an old house with a patio. There are 3 rooms, just one for each person. The second floor is used for stacking sundries, and there are several nests built by swallows last year under the eaves. Ningji has already thought about buying 2 piglets. Killing pigs during the Chinese New Year is more New Year's flavor. As for the residents in the village school, if Qin Pingon is too late to prepare lessons or read books at night, he will continue to live there. He stayed here for several days and finally he was ready to set off and return to the capital of Dali. Except for the Queen Yu Mian and the young girl Yu Yu, there is no one around him. Qin Pingon was surprised by this. He smiled and said that there is Mr. Qin in the village, so there is no need to worry about any assassins. His Majesty the Emperor is really busy every day in the village. Just like the old man with the guest surname in the village left before, the younger generation of that family was clamoring to go to the ancestral hall to set up a mourning hall to put the coffin, and he kept waiting. I was looking to see if there would be a fight, but in the end I didn't forcefully break through the gate of the ancestral hall, as if I was persuaded to go back by some respected old people in the village. Those local dogs that barked wildly when they saw His Majesty the Emperor, now all shake their heads and tails beside He, and they are very familiar with each other. At dawn, Qin Pingon went all the way to the entrance of Wuxia village. The 2 carriages stopped under an old camphor tree at the head of the village. The prefect Pei Tong and the Yunzhou General Chu Liang had been waiting by the road for a long time. Qin Pingon asked, "Your Majesty really thought about it? If I serve as the national teacher of Dali, there are advantages and disadvantages. For example, if I only talk about the monks of the Mo family, I may interrupt the cooperation with the Dali dynasty." The rise of the Dali dynasty was greatly contributed by the Mahists. It is only said that the Mo family ranger Su Ruo is still the second seat of the Song dynasty. But Juzi of the Mo family, the impression of this young hidden official is not very good. It can probably be regarded as the kind of relationship between the 2 sides who have never been masked and do not want to have any intersection, so that the old scholar restored the Confucian temple. I didn't go to Gongdalan to congratulate, but in fact Majia Juzi and Wenxing actually had quite a personal friendship. Obviously it was because of the old show that he found such a close disciple, and Qin Pingon was in Gongdalan at the time. Zi then simply did not go to see the old scholar. Once Qin Pingon becomes the new national teacher of Dali, it means that all the highly skilled organ teachers of the Mo family will most likely withdraw from the Dali dynasty immediately. He nodded and said, "These things have been considered." Yu Yu frowned. Sensing that Mr. Qin shifted his gaze, Yu Yu immediately smiled brightly. Qin Pingon asked, "As for my senior brother Cui, has he mentioned his students to His Majesty? For example, if he thinks that whoever he recognizes is a personal biography, he can be counted as a disciple." He shook his head and said with a smile, "It seems that with the exception of Wu Yuan, the prefect of Chuzhou, who can probably be regarded as a disciple of the national teacher, the rest, including me, have no official status as a teacher's student. Is it a registered disciple of the outer sect who has not yet entered the hall?" Qin Pingon nodded. He asked curiously, "Mr. Qin, is this the pedigree of Wenxing's lineage?" Having said this, he laughed to himself. "If this is the case, I have to change my words. I can be regarded as a student admitted by Cui Guosher." "It's not necessary." Qin Pingon smiled and clasped his fists and said, "I don't want to send you far, so let's say goodbye." He first helped Yu Mian to the carriage and then said goodbye to Qin Pingon. Yu cast 1,000 blessings with lightning speed and quickly hid in the carriage. Qin Pingon, who originally wanted to talk to Yu about something, had no choice but to go and bow to Pei Tong and Chu Liang. The 2 frontier officials smiled and clasped their fists in return, and left in another carriage. Qin Pingon took his disciple Zhou Xian and his student Ning Ji to the school together slowly. The scenery was beautiful. Sword of Coming Chapter 1174. Chapter 1174. The invincible hand on the wine table. Qing Shan and Gao Ren have an appointment at first sight. There are thousands of flowers outside the building when the pen has not retreated. In the mirror of Bai Yunxing before the bright moon falls. The big sunrise in the East China Sea is another day. A little girl in black, wrapped in cotton cloth, holding a green bamboo cane, and carrying a golden pole on her shoulders. The mountain patrol class in the early morning has ended, and she is going out to explore the world. A few days ago she had made an appointment with the left guardian of the Dragon Lane, the date, time, and they met at the meeting point in the Huimeng Mountain. Today they will go to Huanghu Mountain together. Running on a small road in the back mountain of Jisa Peak, two short legs ran like a wheel. The wind blows through the mountains and forests, blowing in large chunks. The bamboo leaves rustle, the pines burst into waves, and the sound of nature is heard. As the days of the good man Shanju returning home were getting longer and longer, the courage of the right protector was getting bigger and bigger day by day. Nowadays, not only do they patrol the mountains between Jisa Peak and Jiling Peak in the morning and evening, but Xiaomi Meili occasionally takes a trip to the Huimeng Mountain, and even travels all the way to Huanghu Mountain. Mainly because I heard Jingqing say that there is a sesame official who is the county magistrate who often goes fishing and is called Fu Hu. He seems to be the parent official of Pingnan County. It's not that the millet grains are distressed for Fu Hu's fish catch, but the main reason is that the magistrate Fu is an ordinary master who has never cultivated qi, but there are a lot of alien aquariums in the lake. There are several herrings and the county magistrate Fu should not be caught by fish. Huanghu Mountain used to be the site under the water flood, and a water house was built at the bottom of the lake. The two Dragon King baskets of Qin Wanshu and Qin Lingjun were forged into a landscape formation here. There are a few old tea trees on the mountain, plus the spring water of Yunmu Peak. Every year before the rain, the old cook will go up to the mountain to pick tea in person, and return to the house to fry tea and make tea. Every time the millet drinks tea he will praise a few words. Okay. The taste is sweet. In a pavilion on the mountain road north of Huimeng Mountain, Xiaomi met the Zhou Hufa, and together they wandered off to Huanghu Mountain. He took out the cakes that he had prepared a long time ago and gave half of them to Hufa Zhou. They were peach cakes and almond cakes from their own New Year's shop in Xianxia. After eating the cakes, Xiaomi clapped her hands and said with a smile, "Zhufu Fa, do you know not only the Huanghu Mountain of Sister Hongxia, but also many of our family's vassals' mountain tops, all of which are protected by Chief Shou's pockets? Well, the old man has a lot of money." The dog nodded. That Zhou Fei is indeed rich, a native rich man spending money without blinking an eye. There can be a few more such chief worshippers, not too many. The old millet said, "Fu Hu, who likes to fish by the lake, is the magistrate of Pingnan County, a real official. I heard from Jingqing that the magistrate Fu used to be the top spot at the Dali capital city news. Come to Pingnan County to be the magistrate. It is a level of officialdom, not a promotion, but it is a reuse. If we two really meet this magistrate Fu, remember to look at my eyes and act. We both can be smart." The dog continued to nod. Qin Lingjun is right, he is a sesame official, but being able to take charge of a county in Dali is much more promising than being an idler in Qingshui Yamen like the Jiedao office. There must be a background in the family. I remember a person surnamed Fu. It's called Fu Yu. He used to be the prefect of Baoshi County. He is a son of a family in the capital. He first worked as a secretary for Wu Yuan to handle the copywriting and accounting books. Most of them are relatives with Fu Hu. Xiaomi Meili looked down and wondered, "You know all about the Fa? Could it be that Sister Wanshu is right? Can you be enlightened?" The dog quickly shook his head. If Xiaomi knew the truth, let alone Luopa Mountain, I am afraid that Tong Yezhou Qingping Sword Sect would know it. In fact, it doesn't matter if everyone knows it, just can't let Pei Qian know. This guardian of the left side of Riding Dragon Lane actually had a name for a long time, Han Lu. If it hadn't been for Pei Qian, it had a real name, and it used to eat pills as a meal, and it would have been successfully refined long ago. When I think of the former little black charcoal, the past is unbearable. Even if Pei Qian turned into a girl back then before she went to Beiju Luzhou to travel, she seemed to have deliberately confessed to Xiaoli, "You are colleagues in the officialdom, don't intrigue if you want to love each other when she is not at home. Let the guardians will often come to your side to order Mao. Don't always wander around. The rivers and lakes are sinister. There are some masters who steal dogs. They are very good at catching dogs. They don't need meat buns, it's just that bending down and copying. You can abduct a dog wrapped in a cotton robe." Without knowing it, he turned around and ran to the stew pot. "We can't eat dog meat. You are on the old cook's side. Eat together, don't starve guardians. Besides, you remember to remind the old cook to throw a few more bones on the ground together. If you don't eat it, you don't give face, and it's easy to be billed by millet grains, and then be settled by Pei Qian after returning home in autumn. Eat loose portion. Millet grains looked left and right and there was no one around, so he pulled out a satin cloak from the cotton satchel. As a result, in a pavilion with white walls and black tiles in front, a figure in a blue shirt and a long coat suddenly walked out, with gentle eyes and a smile on his face, looking at the grain of millet who took care of himself. Xiaomi Meili looked embarrassed, ran quickly to the good mountain master who came without saying hello and said shyly, "It's a bit naive. This navy blue cape worn on the body of the millet is just the right size. At first glance, it is the craftsmanship of an old cook. Why is it naive? It's because you can't get to the point that you feel awkward." While speaking, Qin Pingon made a two-finger twist and then flicked his wrist. Women on the rivers and lakes are like this. Millet grains followed suit, stretched out a hand to pull a corner of his cloak, and then shook his wrist vigorously, making a rattling sound. "Oh, eh." Qin Pingon said solemnly, "Do you still feel childish now?" Millet grain grinned and said, "It's majestic and powerful." Qin Pingon nodded to the local dog and it immediately understood it and played it by himself. I chatted with Xiaomi Li about the current situation of the next sect, and said that Qingping Jinzong has newly established 3 government departments, 6 divisions and 8 bureaus. Millet grains were confused, frowning 2 pale yellow eyebrows. "Remember to be serious. Listen to God, is there such a good thing?" After the big white goose became the suzerain it was different, but it was hard to give people an official hat. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Sect Master Cui is teaching me to do things." Millet blinked. Qin Pingon restrained his smile. "Didn't you tell Pei Qian about the hero book?" Xiaomi Meili shook his head vigorously. "I made an appointment with Bai Shou Bai Jianxian, the peak master of Taihui Jinzong Pianran Peak, so I can't talk about this. But the trivial matter of Bai Shou calling the good man Mountain Lord Brotherhood," Xiaomi Meili told Pei Qian one by one. At that time Pei Qian had a dark face and said it was fine and wrote it down. Xiaomi Meili said something from the bottom of his heart. Bai Shou has a really good relationship with the good person Mountain Master. Can be seen that although Bai Jianxian never said it, he actually admires the good person Mountain Master in his heart. Well, the old cook made an analogy saying that it is like a teenager who meets an adult who admires from the bottom of his heart, because he is worried that the two sides have nothing to talk about, so he likes to say that I can drink. Pei Qian's face softened and nodded, saying that Bai Shou can become Lu Jiangxian's direct disciple, and it is only through the master's matchmaking. This guy has always talked no big or small and he never called Master Lu Jianxian before. Oh. Qin Pingon rubbed his chin since it wasn't Millet grains tipping off the news who leaked the news to Pei Qian. Millet scratched her face, still feeling that she had to hint at the good man Mountain Master. Definitely not Jing Qing. Qin Pingon patted the little girl's head and pretended to be surprised. So it turns out it seems that I wronged Jing Qing. Qin Pingon let the millet ride on his neck, just like a father pampering his own daughter. The little girl put her arms on the head of the good man Mountain Master, her round chin rested on her arms, squinted and smiled, and told the good man Mountain Master what fun things she saw on the way of the mountain tour the day before yesterday and the day before yesterday. For example, there is a big toad on the road, it can be slow. Near the Xuxing Pavilion, a bird whose name could not be called built a nest. The pavilion with the longest name is 36 steps away, and those tea slices are almost ready to eat. It's a pity that the kiwi fruit is still small, and someone secretly carved words on a red lacquer pillar in the rain pavilion. Magpies are twittering and they often announce the good news on the branches. Wow, so many new things, it's too interesting. No, it's very interesting. Mr. Da is a neighbor, the abbot of Beiyue Mountain's ordination ceremony. Zhou Guo is responsible for going to Zhongyue Fizi Mountain. Min Wen and Li Ho are responsible for the ordination ceremony of Dongyue Mountain and Xie Ganzhou Mountain respectively. Previously they only stayed in Luopao Mountain for a short time, and Dao Lin soon followed Wei Bo to Shanjun Mansion to discuss the process of the ceremony. Among them, Li Ho took time to go to Luopao Mountain's account room, and Wei Wenlong was so excited that he couldn't even speak. Qin Qinglu and Exen Jian left Luopao Mountain together and planned to visit the Autumn Temple, which has no owner so far. Qin Lingjun was very reluctant to leave old and new friends. These days Jinghao, who couldn't get away with 2 drinks a day, pretended to be reluctant. Jinghao's direct disciple Gao Gong, He Jianxiu Bai Dang and the ghost named Yinlu had already gone down the mountain long before them. There are 2 drinks a day and every time I drink breakfast, Qin Lingjun will not trouble the stupid girl Nuanshu. Qin Lingjun sent it all the way to the gate of the mountain, and agreed with Immortal Master Jing that as long as he traveled to Luxiazu in the future he would definitely be the first to visit Qinggong Mountain. He gave Qin Zhuoliu a package saying that there were some cakes from the New Year's shop, dried creek fish that were dried by himself, as well as tea leaves from Huanghu Mountain, honey from Xianxia Mountain, etc., and they could be eaten on the road. Then use your heart and heart to Qin Zhuoliu, and stop saying a few yin and yang sarcastic words on Jing Lao Shengxian's side. They are just big-hearted and they are too lazy to care about you, so don't put your nose on your face. Qin Qinglu just slung the polite and affectionate package across his body, and left without talking nonsense to Qin Lingjun. The boy in Tsing-yi, who was so angry that he had prepared the polite words like, "Send you 1,000 miles and say goodbye," endured and finally couldn't hold back, took 2 steps and 3 steps, jumped up and kicked Qin Qinglius with 1 kick. Swearing your uncle. Jing Hao pretended not to see anything, but her eyelids were trembling. A few backs, farther and farther. Qin Zhuoliu suddenly raised his arm and shook it a few times. Qin Lingjun was content with this and moved to squat beside the Taoist priest Xianwei. Xianwei, who was sitting on a bamboo chair basking in the sun, couldn't help but ask, "Jingqing, have you ever been to the Confucian temple?" Qin Lingjun was stunned for a moment and said doubtfully, "On Luopa Mountain, only my master has been to the Zhongtu Confucian temple. What kind of onion am I and where should I go? If you go you can enter." Instead, Xianwei was fooled by Qin Lingjun's words and felt helpless. "I didn't mention the Zhongtu Confucian temple, it is the kind of county Confucian temple that can be seen everywhere. According to the Haoran ritual system, every county in Jiuzhou has a Confucian temple." Qin Lingjun looked pitiful, raised his hand and patted the Taoist priest Xianwei on the shoulder, reading stupidly. "Aren't you talking nonsense? The Royal River in Huangtinghua has so many Confucian temples along the way, can I have not been there?" Xianwei became more and more puzzled since he had been there. Why couldn't he recognize those scholars? In addition to some small county Confucian temples in barren and remote places, ordinary county Confucian temples, or slightly more affluent county Confucian temples, hanging statues of the 10 philosophers of Confucian temples will be hung together. Qin Ling was a little guilty and ashamed to say it. He really didn't go to the Confucian temple very much, but of course he did. You have to worship the mountain when you enter the mountain, and you have to worship the water house when you enter the water, you know? To burn incense in the temple, the most important thing is to be sincere. Spirit. Every time I go to the Confucian temple I worship the incense first and then go to the main hall to worship the hanging statue. Outside the door I stare hard at the hanging statue of the most holy teacher. Just give him a bang 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 kowtow. In Qin Lingjun's opinion this is called worshipping the biggest mountain. For example, when you arrive at Beiju Luzhou, as long as you have that blessing, you have to have a good relationship with the real fire dragon who eats all black and white. Another example is when you arrive at Luxiazu, you have to the first one to visit Qinggong Mountain is close to the immortal Jing Lao, who is highly respected and broad-minded. After telling Qin Lingjun this, Xianwei understood it and he was convinced that it was indeed something Qin Lingjun could do. Xianwei looked at the boy in Tsing-yi with a look of pity and patted the other side's shoulder. "Fellow Daoist Jingqing, you really don't take the usual path." Qin Lingjun laughed. "It's all precious Jianghu experience that can't be bought by $1,000. You have to learn it." The date of returning home kept being postponed, and Gao Jun, the head of the Hushan faction, was finally willing to leave Luopao Mountain and Piyun Mountain, and she took the lead in returning to Lotus Root Blessed Land. Zhou Xian was 2 days later than Gao Jun, and was reluctant to return to her hometown. This unambitious golden martial artist, if not for the status of the first person in the Blessed Land martial arts, would probably only stay in Jiaisfeng. In the private house I continued to dip green onions in sauce every day, drink some wine, read a few miscellaneous books borrowed from Brother Dafeng and Daoist Xianwei. When it was time to eat I went to Zhu Lian to wait and help bring the dishes to the table. After eating I helped the girl in the pink skirt to clean up the tableware, and finally ordered a few dishes with the old cook. The next meal will have something to look forward to. One day from Nujiadu, a visitor came straight to Luopao Mountain. The white-haired boy is haunted by ghosts, and she, the genealogist, should be as conscientious as the eerie warding of millet grains. Among the visitors finally came a 5-level Qi practitioner. It was Zheng Yi, the head of the Wudao school of Shujian Lake, who took a ferry from the capital of Dali to this place. Zheng Yi declined the lead of the genealogist, and walked to the Jiasfeng bamboo house by himself. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, "Have you been to the capital of Dali?" Zheng Yi nodded, hesitating to speak. Qin Pingon said, "Have you seen her?" For no reason, Zheng Yi burst into tears all of a sudden. Qin Pingon was silent for a moment. He really didn't know how to solve Zheng Yi, so he could only say, "Go to Zhou Lian's side and sit down when you have time. You can talk to him about this." Zheng Yi packed up his mind and chatted with Mr. Qin about the Five Islands faction. Qin Pingon listened carefully and gave some suggestions for Zheng Yi to pay attention to. After that, Nuan Shu came here and stood far away on the side of the Bluestone Road. She didn't bother the master of the mountain and the head of Zing to talk about business. After the conversation was over, she walked over to the stone table and took Sect Master Zeng to the mountain residence. At the door of the house, Zheng Yi took the key, thanked Nuanshu, entered the house, put away his luggage, hesitated for a while and went straight to Mr. Zhu, who was the chief butler in Luopao Mountain. The door of the old cook's house has always been open and closed, and anyone can come to visit. Zhu Lian was lying on the rattan chair, shaking the fan, sitting up and said with a smile, "Sect Master Zeng, it's a pleasure to meet you." Zheng Yizhui said, "Zenji of the Five Islands School, I have met Mr. Zhu Lao." Zhu Lian held the palm fan and shook it. "My family, don't be polite, sit down and talk." The young man used to be a helper in the accounting room for his son in Xianxia Island. Zheng Yi sat on a bamboo chair under the eaves and told an old story from many years ago. The beginning of the story was that a young man was brought to Xianxia Island by a benefactor named Zhang Yu, and he saw Mr. Qin, who was haggard but had bright eyes. He was wearing a cotton robe and had a mild air. Zheng Yi also talked about how the young man was afraid of Gu Kan. At the beginning of this landscape story, it had nothing to do with wine. After that, there was Mr. Qin, who lived next door. The timid and cowardly young man gradually became relieved. He met some people and affairs, ghosts and debts, which were related to Shujian Lake but were very unfamiliar with Shujian Lake. In Zenji, he was about to talk with the girl from Huangli Mountain. Zhu Lian stood up and said to wait a moment. He went to the wine cellar to get a pot of wine, took off the mud seal and handed it to Zenji. Zenji drank it. "Wine, I don't know if it's people drinking or people drinking wine." I continue to tell the story. I have been talking about myself going to the capital of Dali, and about the reunion under the big sun. There is a girl squatting and reading a book. In the story in the book, there is a timid young man named Xing Yi, and there is a girl Su who may never like Xing Yi at the end of the story or know that Xing Yi likes herself, or who may know but pretend not to know. At the end of the drink, the jug was empty and Xing Yi still raised his head to drink there. Zhu Lian shook the fan and said softly, "The young man originally thought that in his life, if he wanted to meet the girl he loves again, he would need to find her and wait for her for 100 years, hundreds of years and 1,000 years. I like it. But the world is so strange, it seems like a dream come true. I finally found the girl I like. Logically speaking, this is such a rare lucky thing. I should be very lucky, but I began to worry about gains and losses. But I have to say, sadness, it doesn't seem to be heartbreaking. I think it must not be like this. How can it be so unsatisfactory? It shouldn't be like this. This kind of taste is not bitter but astringent. Forget about Miss Su completely and turn to like the current Miss Lu. I feel sorry for the former. I have been in love with Miss Su for a long time, and at the same time I like Miss Lu, and I feel sorry for the latter. Just because deep down in your heart, you have to admit that they are not alone after all. Whoever I like, who I don't like, who I like at the same time I don't like anymore. Seems that no matter what you do, it's always a mistake. It's not the kind of person who likes to pretend to be confused. Since we know it's wrong, how can we really rest our hearts?" Zhu Lian smiled and asked, "Zenji, if you had known that this was so frustrating, would you regret meeting Miss Su back then? Would you regret going to the capital of Dali this time?" The former youth Zheng Yi, now the head of the Wudao sect, shook his head vigorously without hesitation. "Absolutely not." Zhu Lian nodded. "At least I can rest assured when I see it. As for some new regrets, just keep them in my heart for a long time. Zenji, if you ask me here, don't you mean nothing? Do you? Then I'm going to ask you a question in return. Are you really doing nothing? Listen to me, go back to the capital again, and the affairs of the Wudao faction will be put on hold for a year or 2 or 3 years. When you arrive in the capital, the only thing you have to do is to force yourself not to do anything so as not to make mistakes. Otherwise people's hearts will be difficult to deal with. Find a way of living for ordinary people over there. Maybe one day the answer, just run to your heart, is gone." Zheng Yi nodded and said in a hoarse voice, "I listened to Mr. Zhu, so I will do it like this." After hearing Mr. Zhu say so much, Xing Yi felt much better. Zhou Xian smiled and said, "Finally, I'll send you a message. Don't place high expectations on love between men and women, and don't have no hope in your heart." Xing Yi grinned. "I remember." In fact, Qin Pingon had been secretly standing outside the door, listening with perverted ears, and when he heard this he left quietly. There was a girl in a pink skirt in the distance. Qin Pingon raised his finger to his mouth, then smiled and nodded with her. Wanshu bestowed 1,000 blessings, walked lightly and went to work elsewhere. After taking a trip to the Fengyuan ferry on the southeast trade route of Beiju-Luzhou, in the twilight of this day, it slowly docked at Nujiadu. Qin Pingon took Xiaomi Mi and Qin Lingjun to wait here for a long time. While waiting, the little girl in black borrowed a golden pole to the boy in blue, and competed in swordsmanship over there. As it's a pleasure. Jia Xing, who was honored by the local people as Jiao Lao Shenxian, or Jia Banxian, walked behind Zhang Lu Changming, who was temporarily serving as the fair's chief steward. Previously on the ferry deck, the blind old Taoist gave a strong sniff. "Hee, it is as if the mountain wind in my hometown carries the fragrance of wine. It's been a long time since I had a heart-to-heart chat with Brother Jingqing," and the old Taoist was exhausted. Qin Pingon wrapped his arms around his sleeves and said with a smile, "It's all hard work." The patriarch of Luopao Mountain, who was wearing a snow-white robe, gave 1,000 blessings. Her voice was soft and she called out, "Master." In fact, according to Qin Pingan's original idea, this long-lived Taoist friend whom she met in the old deaf children's prison could serve as the accountant of Luopao Mountain. But later Cui Dongshan became the patriarch of the law. After returning home, Qin Pingon asked Pei Qian privately what her impression of Zhang Lu Changxing was. Pei Qian told the truth, first said some good words to pave the way and finally came up with a sentence, which was very intimidating after watching it for a long time. Qin Pingon was relieved. "It seems that longevity is the best choice, there is no one." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "The new steward of this Fengyuan ferry will be replaced by an old sword repairer named Xing Yun, who is the new enshrined of Qingping Jianzong. The identity of the old immortal Jia remains unchanged, and he is still the second steward. As for the ferry, of course it still belongs to our upper sect. Longevity, as the founder of the sect, you are running the ferry business year-round," as Sect Master Cui said. "It is indeed a bit outrageous. Generally speaking, it is more than enough for a cross-continental ferry to have a Jade Pure Realm cultivator in charge. What's more, Xing Yun is also a sword cultivator of the Great Wall of Sword Qi." Qin Pingon talked to Jia Xing again. A new Yuhai Academy was built by Qingping Jianzong. Millet grains held a green bamboo stick in their arms and stopped to applaud silently. Qin Lingjun, who was helping to carry the golden pole, was a little confused. "Both Big White Goose and Master Zhong received money from Brother Jia? Otherwise your academy is not a wine table. Brother Jia, can you go there and talk about a hammer?" Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Everything in the world is well informed about knowledge, and the practice of human feelings is an article. Sect Master Cui and Master Chong agree with the knowledge outside of the book, and I will help you agree to this." "What?" Immortal Jia panicked for a while. "But Pindao has always been outspoken and quick-witted, and he can't be a smooth person. How can he deserve this praise?" Qin Pingon wrapped his arms around his sleeves and smiled without saying a word. Qin Lingjun rolled his eyes. The grains of millet scratched their cheeks. Old Immortal Jia stomped his feet in annoyance, looked at it and said, "Something wrong again, didn't he? If you look down on your own conduct, how can you look down on the vision and love of Sect Master Cui and Master Chong?" Qin Pingon explained, "If Cui Dongshan might make a joke with you, you know very well who Master Chong is. Outsiders are teaching in the academy and Chong Chiu doesn't nod, so Cui Dongshan can't just stuff people inside. As for the specific teaching content, then Fengyuan ferry south to Tongye Continent. Arrived at Yulindu, Jiao Lao Shenxian went to chat with Master Zhong." Jia Xing rubbed his hands together and said, "Bite the scalp and try it out. If you don't match your morals, you won't be able to take up the position of a lecturer. You don't need to be a master to drive people out. Poor Daoist will get out of the way." Changming asked, "Master, I heard that the 5 mountains will be sealed soon. Do we need to prepare gifts here?" For the big happy events on the mountain such as Wuyue Fengjing, as a rule the sects and Daxian mansion in Izhou need to congratulate them. He said that it is usually a letter written by the suzerain and the head, and then prepare a copy that matches the status of the mountain. "Congratulations." Qin Pingon said, Except for Jin Qing and Fan Junmao on the other side of the other mountain lords, we won't put our hot face on our cold in Luopao Mountain. The old fairy Jia immediately heard the meaning and chewed his head. Zhang Lu Changming smiled and said, "We met a few high-ranking people at Beiju Luzhou before and Director Jia chatted with them, and the answers were fluent and very decent." Jia Lao Xianxian said with a face, "Drinking is a mistake, you can't keep your mouth shut, drinking is a mistake." Qin Lingjun slapped Jia Xing's arm with a slap. "Brother Jia, it's all right, you've done a great job again. Who doesn't know Zhang Lu long life is not easy to boast?" Jia Xing reluctantly said, it doesn't count, not to mention what kind of feats it is, but now that I think about it, I have lingering fears and I am afraid. Oh no. In officialdom it's the same up and down the mountain. I'm afraid that it's a mistake not to say or not to do it, but I'm even more afraid that it's a mistake to say something wrong and do something wrong. Qin Lingjun laughed and said, "What are you afraid of? As long as you are at the wine table, Brother Jia, you and that Zhou Xian are invincible." Jia Xing's head froze for a while. "How dare you compare with Lu Jianxian?" Qin Pingon asked curiously. "Oh? How to say it, who you met and what you talked about, let's talk about it carefully." Longevity explained the detailed process of the wine bureau. Qin Pingon listened attentively. It turned out that at a Xianxia ferry in Beiju Luzhou, the old Jia accompanied Zhang Lu for a long life, and negotiated a business with the local Xianfu. There was a restaurant nearby, which happened to sell a kind of wine called Shuangchuan wine. The ferry brewer knew that Jia Xing was good at wine, and he negotiated the business again. Zhang Lu Chongxing naturally had no objection. As a result, he happened to meet a group of people and had already sat down for a drink in the restaurant. Zhou Chuanru Chen's old man, there are two more clear-looking old men in Confucian shirts, and a dull old man who looks like a servant. The two familiar faces among them were Pang Chao, a wooden guest from Luoyang who had visited Qilong Lane in the town, and Qin Budo, a female cultivator. Qin Budo was bold and took the initiative to invite Zhang Lu Changming and Jia Xing to drink together. The three old gentlemen looked like one rich, one expensive and one poor. Among them Huang Zhinshu claimed to be a lecturer at Xiushui Jitai Academy. There is also an old master named Zheng Xinshu who said that he used to be a scholar in a small country, and now he is unofficial and light, so he travels with two old friends who rarely get a break. The last one, named Fan Qing, doesn't like talking much. At first Jia Xing was still a little restrained, but after drinking the wine, a few glasses of mellow and fragrant mountain fairy brewed his stomach, and his courage was immediately enough. Although the old Taoist was very measured, he would never dare to get drunk, but that kind of slightly intoxicated state, it's amazing. In addition, Huang Zhinshu is quite talkative, and his ability to toast and persuade is not low. After going back and forth, Jia Lao Shenxian will open the chatterbox. This went all the way to Luopeishan Chen Shanju morality and knowledge. The words of Jia Lao Shenxian seem to have no taboos, but in fact they are all just right. When Huang Zhinshu, who was most attached to drinking like drinking water, talked about Mr. Nanfeng, Jia Xing drank it all in one go and said, "Nanfeng's article is unique in the world, and the river of water is the battle of stars." Zhang Lu Changming was keen to find that the old master named Zheng Xinshu heard this and shook his head with a smile. Huang Zhinshu asked with a smile, "That young mountain master who praised such popular articles as Daoishan Pavilion and The Story of Mochi?" This old master seemed to have been waiting for the blind Taoist priest at the wine table, and said those words of praise that were old-fashioned and conclusive. Jia Xing laughed and shook his head again and again. "The reason why my mountain owner respects Mr. Nanfeng so much is not only because of the strict words, but the arrangement in the article. There are thousands of famous articles shining like stars, and Mr. Nanfeng is nothing more than one of them. Articles such as Daoishan Pavilion and Ink Chi Ji are of course excellent, but they are only a that's it. The most sincere admiration of our mountain masters is not in some of Mr. Nanfeng's handed-down masterpieces, how beautifully written, but in the old master's articles of mixed praise and criticism, such as Yuezhou Zhao Gong's disaster relief record and Yihuang County Shueji, are the most recognized. In addition, Mr. Nanfeng's words and deeds are consistent. He can apply what he has learned, pay attention to economic affairs, and truly care about the suffering of the people and never talk about it on paper. To be honest, our mountain the Lord likes to copy books and excerpts as you read and write, but the entire article is copied." Jia Lao Shenxian put down the wine glass, stretched out his two hands and turned it over again, at most 20 articles. In terms of the number, Mr. Nanfeng is the leader, and one person has as many as 4. Just ask how many beautiful texts are in the world and the sea of books is boundless. It's like picking 20 Liju. Is it an easy task? What the old Taoist said is true. The mountain owner Qin Pingon really highly respects Mr. Nanfeng. But to say that he told Jiaxing these flattering words is really not that exaggerated. It is far less exaggerated than what the old Taoist said. At that time, it was only a certain time when Jiaxing and Jiaxing sat in the courtyard of the old cook and chatted while eating melon seeds. Qin Pingan's words were still very simple. Zhou Xian agreed a few words, but as a result the old fairy Jia moved the books to the wine table. Of course, my mountain master also said that this is just his family's opinions and personal preferences. Those leisure-like articles have a certain relationship with those who have not been selected, whether they are good or bad, high or low, but not absolutely related. After all, everyone has their own aesthetics and interests. Scholar just swearing at people, is it interesting? Interesting. Is it meaningful? Pindao thinks it may not be there. Good learning is not only destructive in the world but also needs to have the ability to repair and build. If it is knocked down, it has to be rebuilt. You can't pat your and leave. Let's put it aside. Since scholars use their words to convey the truth and pass it on from generation to generation, how can the real gain and loss of the article only be in the literary talent? And how can it not be related to the control of chaos? Being able to ask questions is great. Being able to solve them is even better. Huang Zhinshu and Zheng Xinshu, 2 old gentlemen, looked at each other and smiled knowingly. They unanimously turned their eyes towards the silent old man with an expressionless face. Is it quite a bit of the style of that Wenxing who reasoned and lectured with you, Xiaogong? Leixin is good at insisting on a progressive, interlocking, not easily denied but not easily recognized, the real good often in a higher place. The poor man is rudimentary and has little knowledge. Originally he was no different from ordinary people. He was only in admiration for Zheng Wending's wonderful writing skills. After chatting with the mountain master, I felt that this master is the most famous writer in history. Different things is the most powerful place. Shanju said that in dealing with people, you need to see the wise and think well, but also to be out of the way. Not only should you not be vulgar but also unique and elegant. To be able to not say weird things, behave absurdly, and not deliberately use strange style and obscure content to be fascinating, but also be different, it is difficult to reach the sky. Pang Chao had given this blind old Taoist a series of sincere rhetoric for a long time, and he was completely stunned. Before drinking he was still a little restrained and he behaved kindly and politely. He never thought that after the old Taoist drank it was simply like a divine help. Pang Chao didn't read much, but Qin Budo, who was from the same hometown as Bai and lived in the same era, knew the weight of these compliments. To put it simply, if the old Taoist didn't talk nonsense, it meant that in Qin Pingan's mind, the unmasked Mr. Nanfeng was completely comparable to Bai Yi and Howren Suzy, the most proud of the world. Even more than that, when it comes to cramming, the old Taoist can never say such a rush article. Huang Zhinshu asked with a smile in his heart, "This Taoist priest has already recognized our identity?" Qin Budo is not sure. There are many miraculous things on the mountain. The dumbest old master shook his head lightly, giving the answer. Zheng Xinshu asked with a smile, "Dare to ask Dao Chongjia, what do you think about the writing of the proud students under Su Zimen? For example, Huang in Su Huang?" Jia Xing hesitated for a moment, then drank all the wine in the glass, drinking to strengthen his courage. "We Luobaishan have always been heart-to-heart and treat people with sincerity. The talented Mr. Huang can drink happily and talk about life with him, but he cannot discuss trivial matters in the world with him. A piece of silk can be exchanged for several meat buns, and a few caddies of charcoal can be exchanged for a piece of silk. This is called, the rich family sleeps in the mountains at night. Mistaken the stream for the sound of rain." My mountain master likes the sentence, 10 years of rain in the rivers and lakes in the night, a glass of wine in the spring breeze of peach and plum. I like it so much that I can drink a whole pot of wine by myself as long as I think of such a poem. The wind is cool in the afternoon. Qin Shanju, who dislikes him so much that he almost never wants to talk behind his back, drinks in anguish and repeatedly asks himself how that old master can write such heartless poems. When the old Taoist said this, he sighed softly, poured himself a glass of wine and held it up high as a salutary apology to the sages from the distance. "There are many offenses, don't blame the sages. Zheng Xinshu laughed loudly while Huang Zhinshu nodded with a smile. If you hit the point, you have to pinch your nose to recognize it. Qin Budo and Pang Chao found it even more interesting. A young man is famous, his emotions and anger are hidden, and he has made great achievements in becoming famous. With such a shrewdness and such a skill, he is mostly a hero, a sage and a big trader. If today's meal is just to listen to the blind Taoist priest say some good words, even if it is true and sincere, it is still not very meaningful. Hearing this, Qin Pingon had already guessed the identities of the two old masters. Mr. Xing Wending, Mr. Nan Feng. Mr. Chonghe under Su Zimen. Qin Pingon asked, "The last old gentleman, how did others call him?" Changming smiled and said, "I call him Duke Xiao. From the beginning to the end I never talked to Jiaxing." Qin Pingon was speechless for a while. The old master's real name was more than that. He has profound knowledge and great skill, especially proficient in 3 graves and 5 scriptures, astronomical calendar and Hulua prophecy. It is not only an official school respected by various countries, but also a prominent school within the Confucian Taoism. Although he is known in the world for his rigorous scholarship and can be regarded as a scholar of Confucianism, he is simple in words and extremely poor in words. If students and disciples have doubts, they usually ask their masters for advice by writing, and the old master will also answer in writing. This is also an interesting anecdote within Confucianism. But for some reason this person was not worthy of the Confucian temple. There are even more rumors that this person once closed the door and sat opposite an old scholar who visited the door. In the end, the old scholar gave a thumbs up and complimented the other party with a well-written word. It is reasonable to say that such secret matters which are only known by heaven and earth know you and I know, will never be shared, at least they will never be shared with the disciples. But within the entire Confucian school, it is said that there are noses and eyes. How is Xiao Gong's face flushed, and how old Xiao is the old god who won this tough battle between chatting and laughing. Qin Pingon also knew that when Yu, the deputy head of the Tongyi's Hao Tianmu Academy, was this person's anonymous disciple, both a teacher and a friend. Immortal Jia arrived at the wine bureau and said a few words of his own opinions. For example, scholars of an era have academics of their own era. If they enter the fence, they are full of limitations. If anyone can predict the trend of the cultural context in the next 1,000 years, is the first-class scholar in the world who can enter the pre-stream of the source. The word Prilu was originally a Buddhist language, and the two old masters looked at each other and smiled. This was the first time they had heard this explanation. As for the unsmiling little old man, although he looked poor and sour, Jia Xing was at the wine table and toasted with him a few more times, intentionally or not. Wait until Luopeishan Zhonglu and Jiao Laoxian leave. Mr. Nanfeng twitched his beard and smiled. I didn't expect to be so admired by Lord Qin Shanzhu. There is nothing more fortunate in life than being in a foreign land and having to meet a confidant. Instead of listening to a few good words, but in the lifelong efforts that have never been understood by others, they can be truly recognized and cherished by others. When it comes to the heart, it is like drinking alcohol. The dumb old man who was just drinking and showing no expression from beginning to end stood up and walked to the window. On the side of Nujiadu, Jiao Lao Shenxian asked cautiously, Shanzhu, is there something inappropriate in the poor way? Qin Pingon smiled and said, Qin Lingjun is right, the immortal Jia is invincible on the wine table. Sword of Coming Chapter 1175. Chapter 1175 Daoists don't talk in the corridor under the eaves of the first floor of the bamboo building. Wanshu is busy with needlework, and the millet is chirping, talking about the Qingping sword sect of the Big White Goose. Which official hats are there now? Just read the scriptures on a daily basis. Read history on a soft day. Write on bamboo and draw orchids when you are angry, and read the collection of masters in the spring breeze. Qin Pingon was looking through the books of the military family. The first batch of books sent to Beidasheng was actually prepared on Jiaisfeng's side. 500 grain rain money will be available soon. Shanzhong Jianfeng has just received a secret letter from Tongyin Ferry. On the basis of the original 6 divisions and 8 bureaus, Sect Master Cui has added several branch offices under the Operation Division and Merits Division. There are not many people, but it is not much more than Luopao Mountain. Brand new official offices have sprung up like mushrooms after a rain. Judging from the posture, they are rushing to the 24 offices of the official residence of Yueshenzhen and Dadu Gongho. It is estimated that the final number is only a lot more. Oh, as expected, it's still my unfortunate mountain which is more breezy and upright. Today the boy in Zhou Yi who came to Luopao Mountain to order Mao painting and detain, as the second leader of the self-proclaimed Chuzhou city god temple, it has given itself a name and a Taoist title of Xiqing. Mainly in Pei Zhongrua the lord and the deputy helmsman Zhou have been with each other for a long time, and they have always felt that treating people with sincerity is the best way to say it. Not long ago, it was handpicked by Lord Xian, and it was promoted to the chief protector of Qilong Lane. As for the white-flowered snake that has no credit and hard work, she has now made it, hey, as long as you follow the right person in the officialdom, you can get twice the result with half the effort. Her name, Bai Hong, was actually picked up by the boy in Zhu Yi's hand. At that time Master Qinshan said the truth of the sages and sages in the book, but he didn't quite understand it. The white flower snake who was successful and unable to speak, can be said to be very grateful. Bai Hong became her real name of the demon clan. After that Qin Pingon wished her success in the form, and a middle-aged Taoist priest next to him who looked at the immortal style was also very supportive. Calling himself Chunyang Lu Yen, and also said some festive auspicious words. As a result, as soon as the white snake returned to Chiduan Mountain, it successfully retreated on the same day. When it reappeared it was already a slim woman. The snow-white snake was transformed into a robe by her. The key is that between her eyebrows, there is also a mysterious Dao mark, that a mortal baby was born with from his mother's womb. Sensing the vision of the landscape, Song Yuzhong, the mountain who was transferred from Jiasfeng Mountain to Chiduan Mountain, is almost never greeted in Beiyu's landscape world. The old mountain who walked out of the temple with a golden body, and actually went to the door to congratulate her, calling her fellow Daoist Bai Hong. The boy in Zhu Yi sat on top of Zhou's deputy helmsman's golden pole and whispered, Shanju Bai Hong is thin-skinned and said that she must save a gift as soon as possible, so that she can come back here with the face and kowtow to the mountain owner and thank you. Now the incense little man of the Qinghuang temple in Chuzhou has been riding over the mountains and mountains to order Mao, and then he has been replaced by a green snake to ride. Qin Pingon smiled and said, you turn around and tell Daoist Bai Hong, you don't need to spend so much trouble, you can come here often with you if you have time, and if you encounter a cultivation barrier in the future, you will find someone on the side of Luapa Mountain. Who, let her just ask anyone casually, and after listening to it she feels that she still can't understand it, so she will ask a few more people. The practice question is a big deal and it's not good to be too thin. The boy in Zhu Yi asked tentatively, Lord Mountain Master, why don't I replace Bai Hong and kowtow to you first? Qin Pingon waved his hand and said helplessly. The boy in Zhu Yi said carefully, when will the Lord of the Mountain be free to go to the state city? I am familiar with the road and know the way. I will let the Lord of the Mountain lead the way. Don't look at the fact that it is a high-ranking bachelor to Gao Ping, the Lord of the city god, in his heart, it is always towards this master of his own. Then I thought that I could invite Qin Shanju to visit the temple of the city god, and it would be really bright. Then there is this guy Gao Ping who is too good at being an official. He doesn't understand the world at all. Every time he tells him the etiquette and attention to these landscapes and officials, Gao Ping not only doesn't appreciate it, he wants to save face and suffer the crime, but instead he says that the emperor is not. Anxious eunuch, this kind of taboo words can be said nonsense by a city like you? Qin Pingon smiled and said, it's hard to say the exact date for now, but don't worry, as long as I go to Zhouqing, I will definitely go to the Zhouqing temple to burn incense. I heard that your house's temple of wealth is very spiritual, and it is one of the best in the entire Beiyue boundary. Must go. The boy in Zhu Yi was very happy, but soon became a little sad, and there was a hint of sadness in his eyebrows, and he was afraid that he would make an assertion. In the Lord's view, it is not afraid that it will end up being a human being, but it is worried that the relationship between Gao Ping, who likes to be a bullshit, and Luopa Mountain is not good, and it is also afraid that the well-meaning Qin Shanju arrives there and is in a bad mood for nothing. Qin Pingon lightly turned a page of the book and said casually, next time I see Gao Qinghuang, don't say that you invited me there. The little guy hummed softly. Obviously should be happy, but there is no reason for some unreasonable grievances, and my heart is sour like drinking tea overnight and not brewing good wine. Master Qin Shan can be so considerate, how can you Gao Ping be so hard-hearted? I owe you. Well, I owe you the incense burner that popped out of the Temple of the Earth in Mantu Mountain. Qin Pingon closed the book and said with a smile, Gao Qinghuang sees what you do, and Gao Qinghuang actually takes your thoughts into his heart. It's just that some people don't like to say something. Of course they don't like to say it. I have been unable to hear what we want to hear. After a long time of course we will feel lost, but there is no need to doubt the answer that we have long ago in our hearts. What do you think? The boy in Zhui still hummed, but this time the little guy was no longer so shy and drooping, but instead looked bright and his eyebrows were flying. Qin Pingon stood up, put the military book in his sleeve, and said that he would go to the mountain gate by himself. Luopeishan claimed to be closed for 30 years, during which time no guests or apprentices were accepted. However, because Qin Pingon said hello in private, the people of Luopao Mountain are allowed to collect some direct disciples with eyesight in private, but in a short time, they will not hold the opening ceremony at Jilin Peak Patriarch Hall until the opportunity is ripe. Can do it together. So Xianwei took advantage of such a loophole and accepted an anonymous disciple. The Taoist priest Xianwei was a fake Taoist priest who didn't give a proper burial, but this disciple was a real Taoist priest. This person now rents an old house on Erlang Lane in the small town, and from time to time he goes to Xianwei to ask him about Taoism. Qin Pingon went to the foot of the mountain alone. At the table at the entrance of the mountain, sat a Taoist priest drinking tea. The appearance of a middle-aged man had been stagnant in the cave for many years, and his real age was already Jiaozi's old age. At this moment, Daoist Xianwei is drinking tea and chatting with this disciple. As for whether it is preaching and teaching and helping to point out the maze, it is difficult to say. According to Weibo, this wandering Taoist priest named Lin Feijing seems to have Su Hui. To put it simply, it is extremely likely that this person was a Taoist in his previous life. Many wise people who have been resolved in the previous life, as long as the opportunity comes in this life, once they are enlightened they can practice again and they climb the mountain very quickly, and the practice goes smoothly all the way if they are protected by gods. Lin Feijing was a native of the old Qianzhou of the Baishuang dynasty in the south. He was born in a local county and has been a small Taoist temple. Weibo has checked the archives of the Dali ritual department, and there is no problem with his life experience and character. This man has a firm mind, but his cultivation aptitude is average. He is in his 60s and he is only a Qi practitioner in the cave state. Because he was delayed by the war, he has no Taoist name. Lin Feijing came from the south of one continent this time. I traveled all the way to the north of Dali, and my original intention was to ask Qin Shanju to teach Taoism, but when I got here I found that Luopao Mountain was not welcoming. Because I couldn't see Qin Pingon, I had to stop at the gate of the mountain. Lin Feijing was unwilling to do so. After returning home I often drink tea at the gate of the mountain, thinking that it is not appropriate for me to forcibly climb the mountain, and Shanju Chen always has to go down the mountain, and as a result he was cut off by the janitor Xianwei. After chatting about some things, Xianwei persuaded Feijing, if it's all right then go back. As for helping you find a job in Huaihuang County, I have been talking to Daoist Jingqing not long ago. I said that. The other party patted his chest and promised that he will help you implement it in the near future, so you can rest assured. Lin Feijing nodded. Master can tell that Immortal Master Jingqing clearly that in this business, you don't need to worry about salary. The disciple just feels that he has found a place to live and can earn a little money, and he doesn't need to spend money every day, so he can feel more at ease. I heard that the Immortal Master Jingqing from Luopao Mountain is an old immortal in the nascent soul realm who has returned to the original state. Xianwei complained. What is this? What is the relationship between the teacher and the Daoist Jingqing? How can the monthly salary be low? Qin Lingjun was really interested in this matter, but on the side of Qilong Lane, Shi Rao's New Year's shop, the contemporary shopkeeper only sold cakes. Only earn a few taels? But let Lin Feijing go to the Chaotu shop next door. First, he didn't see Brother Jia before, and secondly, the business of the shop was normal, and the small shop had Zhao Denggao and Tianjiu, so Qin Lingjun was really embarrassed. At the beginning, I wondered if I was secretly advancing the money myself, and I had a discussion with Wei Wenlong and Zhang Jiazhen from the accountant, and I asked them to do a little favor. Every month I would pay Lin Feijing a salary in the name of Luopa Mountain. It was nothing more than every month. Qin Lingjun can still spend the expenses of a few snows a month. Small money. The gold ingots, yuan bao and copper coins at the bottom of the mountain, and the 3 kinds of immortal coins on the mountain, can they have a big face? This is called heaven and earth, brotherly loyalty and the greatest face. Just before Fengyuan ferry docked at Nujiadu, Qin Lingjun had a chat with Brother Jia. Brother Jia was forthright and repeatedly said that there was no problem. The trivial matter of having more bowls and chopsticks in the shop also spared brother Jingqing from going to the cashier. After a trip, he said that Jia Xing paid the salary of a few snows per month, and now he is enjoying the fortune on the Fengyuan ferry. He holds the title of second steward. Instead, it became difficult. Just let that Lin Feijing go directly to the Chaotu shop. Don't be a buddy, lose your share, you have to give the title of the second shopkeeper anyway. It's better, brother Jingqing, you can help me with a few words to Jura and he. Climbing high, let the two of them remember that when they are on Lin Daichang's side, there must be rules for juniors to treat elders. Otherwise he, a master, will move out of the master's family. One thing is settled. However, Qin Lingjun hadn't had time to announce the good news to Daoist Xianwei. Lin Feijing stood up and said goodbye to master. Xianwei slowly got up, shook the sleeves of his Taoist robe and reminded, visiting immortals to cultivate Taoism, refining qi and breathing, focusing on sincerity, calm and clear qi, so you must guard against arrogance and impatience. As for the realm, you can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. Lin Feijing bowed and said, Master is right, my generation of cultivators should place too much importance on realm and give up the bottom line. It is indeed a disciple who is restless. Thank you, Master, for your advice. In terms of eloquence and quick wit, Daoist Xianwei was almost able to deceive Qin Pingon in the capital of Dali. This apprentice is really not bad. With just a few words, the disciple can think of some truths that the master himself could not think of. Xianwei patted Lin Feijing's shoulder. The way of Taoism is natural, you must do things with inaction and you must sharpen your inaction in doing things. As long as you are calm and stable, you can cultivate the Tao and the way of heaven rewards your diligence. See the moonlight. Lin Feijing seemed to have come to a realization, and once again thanked Master for this golden and jade speech that was worth chewing over and over again. Xianwei's face was sullen, showing his master's notation, but he was actually relieved and finally sent the old boy Lin Feijing back. After all, Xianwei, who had accepted his apprentice, had a guilty conscience and never dared to take the initiative to mention this matter with the mountain master. Xianwei even repeatedly told Xiaoli not to worry about telling Shanjuchen about this matter. When the time was right, he would report the matter to Shanjuchen himself. It's just that the Taoist Xianwei's guilty conscience is not the rule of closing the mountain and not entertaining guests and accepting apprentices with caution, but his own whim, worried that he will mislead the children's views on Qin Shan's his side. Don't accept it. When he got an apprentice, he lost his iron job as a janitor, causing him to return to his old business. The master and apprentice went to the rivers and lakes together to eat. Luckily, he was just an anonymous disciple who was usually referred to as a Daoist. Otherwise, Xianwei would really persuade Lin Feijing to return to his hometown to have a look. In name, Xianwei reluctantly accepted Lin Feijing as his disciple when he saw Lin Feijing's seal. As for the truth, in Xianwei's opinion, Lin Feijing was born in a noble family, and he was a qi practitioner in the middle 5 realms, with a small amount of savings and a good family background. Xianwei is an old Jianghu. In a few words before, he had figured out the details of Lin Feijing. For example, it seemed like a nonsense. Daoist friends have been to several Xianxia ferry crossings and have been on several Xianxia ferry boats. That is to say, now there is no need to kidnap for the sake of cheating. Otherwise, the Daoist Xianwei can let Lin Feijing travel north with money, but return home without money. Just like Qin Ping's comment, it can be said in one sentence. It is not an innocent family, and it will not be deceived by Xianwei Daochang. Lin Feijing suddenly stopped and asked, Master Xianwei, who is this? A man in a green shirt and a long coat stepped down from the steps of the mountain road, with a hosta on his head, and his air was gentle. Xianwei turned his head and saw that his head was as big as a dustpan. Why did the mountain master come down the mountain? Fortunately, Lin Feijing was clever and didn't call his master. Qin Pingon smiled and said, My name is Qin Pingon, this fellow Taoist is Xianwei's friend? Lin Feijing glanced at Xianwei. Xianwei stomped his foot, that's all, stretching his head and shrinking his head was a matter of a knife. He admitted it generously and then confessed to Qin Pingon, saying that Lin Feijing was his anonymous disciple. Good thing. Qin Pingon nodded and smiled. Since you have the status of master and apprentice, fellow Daoist Lin can live here. As for whether to settle down at the foot of the mountain or go to the mountain to choose a house, it depends on the arrangement of Daoist Xianwei. Xianwei sighed softly in his heart. He was just a gatekeeper of Luopao Mountain. How could he look like a priest with a seat in Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall? Lin Feijing hesitated for a while and then he had a stern showdown with the thunderous Qin Shanzhu and then got up and said, Qin Shanzhu, I rented a house in the town and the deposit for half a year has been paid. Ask someone for help and find me a place to earn a living in the county town. I think I will live there in the near future, and I will come back to harass Master Qin after half a year. Qin Pingon smiled and said, My family doesn't say polite words. In short, it's just how convenient it is. Daoist Lin Feijing thanked Qin Shanzhu, who matched the image in his mind. Well-behaved, serious. In order to get back to Luopa Mountain as soon as possible, Chief Zhou used the Sanshan talisman, and taught this talisman to Feng Shuetao. Probably because of the timidity of being close to the nostalgia, Jiang Shangzhen did not go straight to Jiazifeng Luopao Mountain, but took Feng Shuetao to Huaihuang County first and walked around the streets and alleys. On the ground, listening to Jiang Shangzhen's light-hearted introductory words, Feng Shuetao became more and more terrifying as he went on, not to mention Fulu Street and Taoya Alley, maybe an inconspicuous narrow alley, in a dilapidated house. There used to be so-and-so. Born and raised here, I stepped on chicken and dog dung every day, and eventually left my hometown one after another and became who and what. In the end they had a drink in the restaurant, which is the tallest building in the town. Standing by the window on the third floor they could see the crab shop. Feng Shuetao asked casually, Since this restaurant is the tallest, isn't it also a place occupied by an expert? As a result, Feng Shuetao found that Jiang Shangzhen had been raising his head and looking at the ceiling. Jiang Shangzhen retracted his gaze and said with a smile, There is a fourth floor above our head. The embroidered shoes of the host are taller than our heads. Do you think they are taller? Double entendre. It's just that Feng Shuetao misunderstood and didn't take it seriously. Just because Jiang Shangzhen talked about the inside story today, it was all on paper, and more truth was not disclosed to Feng Shuetao, for fear that this young secret Taoist friend would be angry when he was walking in the town. Not even taking a breath. In the land of slaps, it is extremely rare to have an ascension cultivator on the mountain. What if there are two at the same time? Unimaginable. After all, in a corner of the limited landscape, crowded with two people flying up the mountain, it is almost like the door-to-door of the gate of the Yamashita market. And what if more? Therefore, in the incredible place of Lizidongshan, the lower the realm, the more courageous to walk at night. Foreign monks, the higher the realm, the more careful they must be. Feng Shuetao, for example, only knows a little bit more about the great monks here through some secrets on the mountain. For example, it is very likely that there is a soaring platform hidden here. Qi Jingchun, the teacher of the small town school, is the penultimate person in charge of the town. Here is a saint of the 3 religions and a family, a very young scholar of 14 realms. The only true Dragon King Zhu in the world, the root of the road is here. As for the younger generation who went out from the town, such as Qin Pingon in Luopao Mountain, Lu Xianyang in Longquan Jianzong, Ma Kushuan in Xinghua Lane, and Guqin in Nipping Lane, there is more news circulating in the outside world. Feng Shuetao said, This visit to Luopa Mountain, do I need a backup gift? If it is just a pure identity of a soaring realm cultivator, even if Feng Shuetao passes by the Dali dynasty, he only needs to deliberately bypass Luopao Mountain and Piyun Mountain. Since your old Lizidongshan's landscape boundary in Wan Qiong's hands, make an agreement. Qi practitioners need to hang the sword talisman in the jurisdiction of the wind, so I can't afford it. Can I hide? But since I was with Chief Zhou this time, I was a guest at Luopao Mountain for the first time. I had to talk about the etiquette on the mountain. The problem was that Feng Shuetao didn't understand the temperament of the young hidden official, and the quality and price of a meeting gift. There is knowledge. As a Yi Xiu, Feng Shuetao is of high age and has a good family background. For example, he has a half-immortal soldier treasure on hand. Feng Shuetao has not made a fool of himself. Of course, he is reluctant to send it out. If there is a magic weapon that cannot be refined for life, or a magic weapon that is not cost-effective to refine, which one should you choose? The same thing is a magic weapon and the price can be very different. Jiang Shangzhen sat down again, took a pair of chopsticks and stewed bamboo shoots with bacon, and specially picked the spring bamboo shoots called Nilahuang or Huangnijian in the town, and then used the ham meat that had been dried for 2 or 3 years to stew slowly in a casserole. Jiang Shangzhen chewing carefully, he smiled and said, I have already helped to prepare the gift. Brother Feng doesn't have to think about these little things. Feng Shuetao shook his head and said, No, I still have some savings. Jiang Shangzhen smiled and said, Don't argue with me about this. If it wasn't for my sake, you wouldn't have to go to Luopao Mountain. According to custom, whether it's visiting relatives during the first month of the year, or visiting people to ask for help, you have to send a pair, not a single. So either you don't send the wine at all, you have to send 2 bottles. So I prepared 2 more pleasing magic weapons for you. What's more, Feng Shuatao lost a lot of money during the slaughter in the wild hinterland. Yi Xiu earns money. Can he be comparable to the cultivator of genealogy? Although you are Feng Shuatao from Ascension, I am Jiang Shangzhen. Between good friends it makes sense. Feng Shuatao still insists on his own opinion. Jiang Shangzhen has already raised his glass and drank it all. Stop talking and drink more. The more you go, the more friendship you will have. If you really feel bad in your heart after you finish drinking the wine in your glass, return the 2 of me. It's settled. Feng Shuatao had to drink 3 glasses of wine in a row, raised his hand and wiped the corners of his mouth. Jiang Shangzhen drank a lot of wine and added more dishes and smiled. My alcohol intake is high or low, and the quality of the wine is good or bad. Bad hook. Inviting Feng Shuatao to serve as the enshrinement of Yu Guizhong, in addition to the mutual affinity of the 2 sides, and being able to urinate in a pot, Jiang Shangzhen certainly has his own selfishness. For example, if you quarrel with others in the Xinzhuan Peak Patriarch Hall in the future, you will have helpers. Jiang Shangzhen finally didn't have to do it alone and picked a house one by one. I have found a bunch of people through several Shanshui newspapers controlled by the Jiang family, and Jiang Shangzhen personally went off the stage, smashed the money of the gods, and used dozens of word-of-mouth transmissions from different sects and fairy houses to help the Taoist Qing secret. Feng Shuatao in the southern part of Tongye continent was very publicized, and his fame spread far and wide. This person who was in the mirror on Izhou Mountain and famous for scolding Jiang Shangzhen for being the most vicious and ruthless broke the real monarch. I do not know how to hook up. Qing Mi, the old Feisheng, is a mountain-top loose immortal from Yiluzi. He has an extreme personality. He likes to play black hands, knock sap, and he will be reported. Killing is a common thing like eating and drinking. Cut grass and root without leaving the slightest trouble, an immortal mansion targeted by this Ascension realm cultivator, not to mention male and female monks, even chickens that can lay eggs. The key is that there is no evidence even in the Confucian temple. This time, all Feng Shuatao is willing to make an exception and serve as the named worship of a sect. You ask him what Feng Shuatao is planning? Nonsense, what else can you do? Naturally, it is going to the Huashan Mountain in Jiang's blessed land, so the fairies who are on the rouge list should be careful. Don't go out and travel in the near future, be careful of being poisoned. I heard that Yi Xiu, who has no Taoist partner, has illegitimate children in 7 or 8 continents of Hauran. Maybe Jiang Shangzhen is one of them. Do you think this is the truth? Poor Feng Shuatao, he hasn't appeared in Jade Guizhong yet, he still doesn't know his reputation, it's already rotten on the street. Generally speaking, it is unanimous to say that the wild father of Jiang Thief came to Tongyi's Hao Yuguizhong to find his son to recognize his relatives. Before coming to Aquarius, Jiang Shangzhen carried Feng Shuatao on his back, went to Jade Guizhong, and temporarily initiated a discussion in the Patriarch's Hall. Regarding whether to invite Feng Shuatao to serve as a sect worshipper, there was no objection in the temple of the ancestors of Xinzhuan Peak at that time. They may not all feel that it is not a good thing for Feng Shuatao to serve as a worshipper, and they may just be accustomed to disagreeing with Jiang Shangzhen. Probably without taking the opportunity to scold Jiang Shangzhen, it would not be considered a qualified Xinzhuan Peak discussion. Since Feng Zuido's reputation is so bad, why should we Yu Guizhong take over such a hot potato? Jiang Shangzhen has only one sentence: I almost didn't kneel on the ground begging Feng Shuatao to come to Xinzhuan Peak. He is of high realm, and he is an ascension realm that is hard to find even with a lantern in hand. Assuming that Feng Shuatao is really willing to serve as a worshipper, how should the salary of an ascension realm be priced? If it is too high, it will exceed the foreign surname of the rest of the Jade Guizhong's foreign surname worship and name guest Qing. So what do they think? If it's too low, Feng Shuatao won't have any opinion. He thinks we've lost his face. But don't fall out, there will be more enemies on the mountain for nothing. Feng Shuatao is an ascension realm. Feng Shuatao is a wild cultivator after all. What can he do when he arrives at Jade Guizhong? Do you offer him up as a living ancestor of a flower stand? Feng Shuatao is an ascension realm. The surname is Jiang. If anything happens in the future, for example, Feng Shuatao can't be idle. During the trip down the mountain to play in the mountains, we got into a dispute with Tong Yezhou and accidentally killed someone. You Jiang Shangzhen, are responsible for delivering toilet paper to Feng Shuetao. Wipe the and sweep the hut. For the trouble of an Ascension Realm cultivator, are you an Immortal Realm really responsible? Feng Shuetao is Ascension Realm. Feng Shuetao is Ascension Realm. Feng Shuetao is Ascension Realm. Important things are said 3 times. Being so rogue by Jiang Shangzhen, someone in the Ancestor Hall almost fell off the chair. Jiang Shangzhen turned his head to look at the statue of the Zhuxian, his face full of grief and indignation, and began to complain. The ancestors, especially the old man Sun, open your eyes and look at what these people have done. Sect Master Wei, listen to your ears, listen to how these avenge their personal revenge. When quarreling there is no taboo in scolding people, and being scolded is not serious. Satisfied, Jiang Shangzhen leaned against the back of the chair and asked, "It seems that in the history of your snowy continent, there has never been a cultivator of the 14th realm?" Feng Shuetao said with a smile, "There are no 14 realms in Snow White Island. Not to mention Luxiazu, which is also a neighbor. After all, Aizhou and Juluzhou are the worst to deal with. They have been competing with each other for so many years. You have the real person of the fire dragon of the Pillow Peak, and we also have Wei Shi, the master of the 72 peaks. You swordsmen are like clouds, and we have Lu Jubao, the god of wealth." Jiang Shangzhen was Tong Yezhou. At that time, everyone who practiced qi had higher eyes than the top and underestimated Haoran Qizhou. To a certain extent, it was related to the old master who owned a Taoist temple in the East China Sea. At this moment, 3 people came from the entrance of the stairs, headed by a man with a blue shirt, long coat and cloth shoes. He looked young, his temples were not particularly obvious, and there was a young man with a yellow hat and blue shoes and a man with red cheeks. Girl in sable hat. Jiang Shangzhen hurriedly got up and was flattered. Why did the mountain master come down the mountain to welcome him? Qin Pingon said bluntly, "Go to the 2 shops in Qilong Lane to check the accounts. Xiaomo said you were drinking here. Stop by." The self-motivated Jiang Shangzhen choked for a moment. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Let me introduce to you the 2 around you. Xiaomo have a strange pseudonym, and the Taoist name is Shizhu. Xiego, now she has changed her name to Meihua. She has a lot of Taoist numbers, so I won't go into details." Xiego pouted. "Shanju, if you don't take me as a root, you only have 7 or 8 at most 10 Taoist titles, and you won't be able to pick a few?" Xiaomo said. Xiaomo has met Chief Shou. One is dedicated to the name of the mountain at night, and the other is the chief consecration of outstanding achievements. Jiang Shangzhen walked quickly towards Xiaomo, grabbed the opponent's hand and shook it vigorously. "Fellow Daoist Shizhu, I have heard the name for a long time. Xiaomo is a little strange. It seems that Chief Shou has just returned from the wild world. Why has he heard the name for a long time?" Feng Shuetao had already stood up. Qin Pingon took the lead in saluting with his fists, and Feng Shuetao handed back the salute. If it wasn't for the mutual friend Jiang Shangzhen, the 2 sides really had nothing to talk about. Jiang Shangzhen turned his head to look at the wine table with messy cups and plates, and asked, "Can I have someone serve the wine and food again?" Qin Pingon smiled and said, "No, I ate it before going down the mountain, and I ate a few more cakes at the New Year's shop." Going to Luopao Mountain with Yufeng, Jiang Shangzhen gave Feng Shuetao a sword talisman when he was in the town before, reminding him to hang it on his waist. Feng Shuetao found that Jiang Shangzhen had changed since Qin Pingon appeared. Earlier at the wine table, Jiang Shangzhen sighed, muttered, and said some words that the clothes are not as new and the world is like this. On the way, Jiang Shangzhen told some interesting stories of Feng Shuetao's wild trip in his heart. Feng Shuetao, who has become a dragging oil bottle, returned north first so as not to hinder someone from using his sword and accidentally be hacked to death by a random sword. After that was the general process of the fight. Gukan didn't say much on Qin Pingan's side, but Jiang Shangzhen said it cheerfully, spitting everywhere, saying that Chaosis group of young people are really not good at all, like the wild world. The Tiangong cultivator, who is also young, is not weak whether it is magic or Taoism. If it weren't for the magic hands of Chao Xiai and Gukan, this fight would actually be a fight. Xiego sneered in his heart and said, "Listening to what you said, it seems that Chao Xiai is also a little interesting. The rest of the monks are young after all." Jiang Shangzhen snorted, "Miss Xie, can you hear me and the mountain master?" Xiego opened his eyes and said, "Nonsense, Xiaomo just relayed it to me." Xiaomo said helplessly, "Don't talk nonsense." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Xiego's real name is Bai Jing. He is an ancient sword cultivator of the same generation as Xiaomo. His swordsmanship is slightly higher than that of Xiaomo. Xiego smiled and said, "What? I am as good as Xiaomo in swordsmanship." In Luopao Mountain, Xiego learned a lot of mantras. Jiang Shangzhen, who has been in the hundreds of flowers for a long time, is not blind. How can he not see the affection of Xiego for Xiaomo? For example, the azaleas bloom like a fire, and when the wind passes they nod their heads and say they like them. I lost. Xianxia was tired and he was the chief of Luopao Mountain. If he didn't fight he couldn't keep it if he couldn't keep it. Only Feng Xuetao, an outsider, could not hear the content of their hearts. Arriving at the gate of the mountain, Jiang Shangzhen's eyes lit up, and he was immediately full of fighting spirit. It turned out that when Qin Pingon went to the restaurant to find Chief Zhou in the town, he had already notified Zhou Xian on the side of Luopao Mountain. There was a hunched old cook wearing cloth shoes, a boy in blue, a girl in pink, a girl in black, and Sun Yuanji, who stopped at the foot of the mountain to take a break. In addition, there are two gatekeepers of Luopao Mountain, Dafeng brothers Taoist Xianwei, and a white-haired boy who serves as the editor. Everyone was noisy and greeted Chief Zhou home together. Jiang Shangzhen felt warm in his heart in an instant. In addition to the mountain master, who else can have this treatment? This is what it means for a man to work hard to earn money outside. Spend money where it's worth it and spend it where it's worth it. Finally back. Jiang Shangzhen and the old cook smiled and raised their hands and gave them a high five, then clasped them tightly together. Qin Lingjun asked Chief Zhou to sit at the table quickly, so that he could tap his shoulders and rub his arms. Warming the tree to boil water to make tea, the millet grains are also diligent, and the dried fish and sunflower seeds are placed on the table. There are rules for worshipping the mountain, and it must be recorded on the side of the gatekeeper, the Taoist priest Xianwei. A white-haired boy had already taken out a pen and paper from his sleeve. Feng Xuetao, the scattered fairy in Aizhou with the road named Qingmi, ascended to the realm, followed the chief to worship Zhou Fei on a certain day in a certain year, visited Luopao Mountain and gave gifts and 2 magic weapons. The white-haired boy who was in charge of compiling the chronology laughed on the surface, but in reality he was full of slander. Don't come next to a monk of the lower 5 realms so that I, the music editor, can be happy? Why is there an ascension realm again? It's not interesting. Take their seats, lively and lively. Qin Lingjun complained that Chief Zhou was late, and Brother Jiao followed the Fengyuan ferry to Tongyi's house. Jiang Shangzhen said with a smile that when Elder Jia is teaching at Yuhai Academy, he must join in and sit in the first row. Qin Lingjun felt that the atmosphere was good, so he dared to talk to his master, saying that Brother Jia was too embarrassed to speak before, and it was a lot of pressure to be a lecturer in the academy, so he thought about whether he could drink some wine to strengthen his courage before the lecture. Qin Lingjun Pingan smiled and said it was fine, not to mention drinking before class. Even if the old Jia had a small drink in class, it would be fine, just pay attention to the appropriate amount. Yuhai Academy is a private academy anyway, so we can make an exception for Jia Sheng. It is up to him to discuss this matter with Sect Master Cui and Master Chong. Sitting next to Jiang Shangzhen, Feng Xuetao noticed the girl with a sable hat with an odd name, squinting at himself from time to time. Looking at her, whether she is probably a Jade Pure Realm Sword Immortal? The girly Xiego feels that he can't see his own realm, so he is more curious about his own identity. In fact, Xiego was talking to Xiaomo. Xiaomo, can he carry 2 or 3 more swords than that Jing Hao? Xiaomo hesitated for a moment. It depends on how this person escapes. In the past, Xiaomo didn't talk about this topic at all. Now Xiego is doing better and better in Luopao Mountain, and you can talk to her at will. This is also a private suggestion of Mr. Zhu. Xiaomo, the more you treat Xiego as a white scene, the more Xiego is a white scene. In fact, to put it in a more straightforward way, that is how much your little Mo likes Miss Xia, how much Miss Xia will like Luopa Mountain. Jiang Shangzhen jokingly said, "What's the matter with the new superintendent who is so unclear?" Compared with the previous drunkard Chao Gingxin, his ability to be an official is 1,000 miles behind. A Longquan County Kiln Supervision and Construction Office, on the bright side, supervises the firing process of those kiln-mouth porcelains that retain the status of official kilns in Longquan. Of course, there is a more important secret responsibility, which is to supervise everything in the former site of Lizidongshan. In fact, after Longquan Jinzong moved to the mountain and moved away from this place, the only thing that the spy of the Supervision and Administration Bureau needed to watch was Luopao Mountain, which was the biggest landlord. Is very smart. It is obviously the biggest responsibility of the Supervision and Construction Department, but Chao Geng does not care about it. As a result, he has been the head of the Supervision and Construction Department for 2 terms. Now, as expected of a master who dared to care about Chi Lane and Cheer Street secretly selling pictures albums when he was in his teens. On the other hand, the newly appointed inspector is more resolute. For example, when Jiang Shangzhen appeared in the town this time, if Chao Gingxin was in charge of the house, he would definitely turn a blind eye. But today the spy of the inspectorate will be followed all the way, trying to check and confirm the identity of Feng Xuetao next to Chief Shou, as well as the officials at the government office, who have already sent letters with flying swords, and inquired about the news with several nearby Xianxia ferry crossings, whether there is this person passing by record. Just because the 2 of them used the Sanshan talisman, only in the middle of Aquarius continent, Jiang Shangzhen had a routine with the imitation Baiyujing, so the current supervision department has already jumped. If it hadn't been for Zhao Yao, the servant of the Ministry of Punishment, who had previously returned to his hometown and went to the yamen of the superintendent's office, otherwise, according to the behavior of the new superintendent, he would have stabbed the matter to Piyun Mountain. I inquired about this matter with Shanjun Mansion, but in the winding and bumpy landscape officialdom, this is not what accountability is. Qin Pingon smiled and said, the current inspector is called Jian Feng. He likes to admit the truth and does things more seriously. Hearing this comment, Feng Xuetao felt pity for the kiln inspector who was a neighbor of Luopao Mountain. The words in the official circles are either straightforward or slanted. Anyway, there is something in the words, and whether you can understand them or not depends on the talent and experience of the public sect. Jiang Shangzhen smiled and did not explain anything to Feng Xuetao. He was personally evaluated by his own mountain master as recognizing the truth and doing things seriously, which can be completely equivalent to the great excellence of the observation. After drinking the tea, it's time to wash up the dust for Chief Shou and go up the mountain together. Jiang Shangzhen laughed heartily and said, with Brother Feng, there are now 4 ascension realms in Luopao Mountain. Feng Xuetao was shocked. What? There are 3 ascension realms in Luopa Mountain. Jiang Shangzhen said it to the point. 2 of them are still sword cultivators, one is the peak and the other is perfect. It may be far away from the 14th realm pure sword cultivator, and it may be close to it. Feng Xueto's heartstrings tightened instantly when he heard the words, like a small boat undulating in the stormy waves, and it was difficult for him to suppress the ripples in his Taoist heart and return to stability. Jiang Shangzhen smiled and said, these 2 are right next to you 3 steps away. Feng Xuetao couldn't help but stiffen his body and his breathing stagnated for a moment. After all, it was Yi Xiu who was used to seeing strong winds and waves. Feng Xuetao quickly returned to his normal expression and said in his heart, don't tell me sooner. Jiang Shangzhen said something that made Feng Xuetao temporarily puzzled. It makes no difference if you say it sooner or later. Anyway, here we have a high level, it's useless and it's not popular. He parted with the eldest disciple of Kaishan at Jihuadu, and watched Pei Qian board a Xianxia ferry that would dock at Nujiadu. Qin Pingon, who looks like a young man with a sword on his back and goes by the pseudonym Qin Ren, went to the capital of Qingxing Kingdom alone. One of the avatars, the out-of-the-door clerk of Yushan Mountain, is outdated and still in Qingling country. Qingling, Qingxing, one-word difference. In Haoran Juzhou, choosing a country name is actually more difficult than picking a name for a sect on the mountain, so there are often prefixes such as southeast and northwest, which is really impossible. Almost all the single-character dynasties are those dynasties with a long history and profound background, which are somewhat similar to the one-word side-by-side king in the name of the vassal king, and must be the most noble. In the Yushuan country, which is adjacent to the mountain of the Prince of Xia in the capital Wu Di, a Taoist priest from a foreign country still sets up stalls to tell fortunes every day, rain or shine, and it is unstoppable. In the territory of Yenzhou Prefecture of Dali, after school in Tiansuan School, Qin Pingon took his student Ningji and asked the latter to practice how to control a talisman boat, swaying and swaying. When encountering the wind and waves in the sky, it would bump up and down like a flat boat on the water. I went all the way to the north and rushed to the Logging Institute in Yuzhang County, Hangzhou. Qin Pingon made an appointment with Lin Shuyi that he would visit the Logging Institute today. In fact, I talked with Lin Shou before and the result is good. The realm is high and high. This young immortal in the upper 5 realms actually said that he can't get away from something. Qin Pingon didn't say it sooner. In the reply letter, Master Lin told Qin Pingon to go to the logging yard by himself if he was really in a hurry. Didn't matter if he was there or not. Qin Pingon had to make another appointment with Lin Yupu. It really is the world today. People's hearts are not ancient, and whoever owes money is the uncle. In the middle of the night, Fu Zhou fell in a secluded landscape outside the county where the logging institute is located and walked on foot. Qin Pingon and Ning Ji each took out a road guide and entered the county. As soon as Lin Shou came to the gate of the county town, Qin Pingon threw his hands together and said, "Lin Yupu has not seen you for a long time. I am in a panic which has delayed Lin Yupu's practice." Lin Shou felt helpless. It's really something, and the date has been set a long time ago. Qin Pingon smiled. "I Yuaning Yu Yupu, if there is an incident or leave, whoever has the highest level has the final say." Lin Shou laughed and said, "You're not done yet, are you?" Qin Pingon smiled casually and introduced the students around him. Ning Ji subconsciously shouted, "Uncle Lin." Qin Pingon held back his smile. "Ning Ji, you're calling it wrong. According to our pedigree, Lin Yupu is the second disciple of your master and his realm is high, but he is a generation lower than me, so you have to call senior brother Lin." Lin Shui didn't bother with Qin Pingon. He nodded and smiled with the dark and thin teenager. "My name is Lin Shui and your husband is from the same hometown, so just call me brother Lin. Remember not to imitate your husband who likes to say weird things so much in the future." Ning Ji grinned. Mr. himself, he never said weird things, he always had something to say. Lin Shui laughed heartily. "What are you nervous about?" Qin Pingon sighed. "No wonder you made a mistake in your message. Otherwise I would have come to pay New Year's greetings to Uncle Lin earlier." Lin Shui smiled and said, "You just come to the door empty-handed?" Qin Pingon said, "How is that possible?" Lin Shui said, "The county town is not big, it's only a few steps away and my father is already waiting." In fact, his father had already specially asked the kitchen to prepare the meals. He didn't ask Lin Shui why he hadn't arrived yet, or he asked him to go outside to see if he had arrived. Qin Pingon asked, "Will you not disturb Uncle Lin's rest?" Lin Shou smiled and said, "Then you go back, come back next time, choose a day." Qin Pingan's face darkened. "Wait, when I see Uncle Lin, I will find a way to talk about Dong Shuijing." Lin Shui immediately shut up. At the gate of the logging courtyard, Qin Pingon straightened his clothes and let out a long breath. Lin Shui found it interesting and rare. It seemed that Qin Pingon was really nervous. The logging courtyard is also the layout of the official residence at the front, and Lin Shui brought Qin Pingon and Ning Ji to the residence at the back. Qin Pingon was holding gifts in both hands, all of which were local specialties. It must not cost much, but it was all his heart. Lin Shui called his father and Lin Jingqing walked out of the main room. Lin Shou repeatedly took gifts from Qin Pingon. Qin Pingon bowed and said apologetically, "Junior Qin Pingon, I wish Uncle Lin a good old age." Lin Jingqing nodded, his face sullen, but there was a smile in his eyes. "It's okay, it's not too late." Lin Shui felt a little pantothenic in his heart. "You didn't say that before, Dad. You kept saying so late. What new year do you wish to celebrate 10 months in advance?" Qin Pingon introduced the students around him. Lin Jingqing and Ning Ji smiled and said, "It looks like your husband when you were a child." Entering the main hall together, there is a table of the 8 Immortals, and the rest of the furnishings are no different from the hometown. Lin Jingqing asked, "Can I drink alcohol?" Qin Pingon said cautiously, "I can drink." Lin Shui smiled and said, "Qin Pingon has been drinking a lot, but I heard that he was almost never drunk." Lin Jingqing glanced at his son. Lin Shui stopped talking. "No way, Qin Pingon is a typical, other people's child. Since the last time I talked to my father, Lin Shui is now on his father's side. It's much better. He won't be scared to death with just one look, and he won't feel like he's poking his heart out when his father says something casually. Don't say yes. A few days, maybe months or even years, can't be slowed down for a long time." Lin Jingqing let someone bring the dishes to the table, lifted the mud seal of the wine jar, got up and helped Qin Pingon and Lin Shui to pour the wine, smiled and asked Ning Ji if he could drink it. The boy turned to look at his husband. Qin Pingon smiled. He said it was enough to drink a little. Lin Jingqing poured a full bowl of wine for the young man, and said with a smile, "Pouring wine is the custom of our hometown." The wine on the table was full. Lin Jingqing didn't move his chopsticks, so no one took them. Lin Jingqing picked up the wine bowl, drank it all at once and knocked on the table lightly. Except for Ning Ji, who just took a sip, Qin Pingon and Lin Shui both suffocated the wine in the bowl. Lin Jingqing was silent for a moment, looked at Qin Pingon and said with a smile, Qin Quan and Qin Shu have given birth to a good son. The couple in Mud Bottle Alley in the small town, both surnamed Qin, are both good people recognized by the neighbors. And their children year after reaching the age of teenagers, finally met a girl of the same age from a foreign country. At that time the straw shoe boy introduced himself like this, Hello, my father's surname is Qin and my mother's surname is also Qin, so my name is Qin Pingon. Lin Shui didn't go to see Qin Pingon, but just gave the boy a chopstick dish and said with a smile, Ningji, try it. In the territory of Qingling country, the wild creek originating from Xiayu Mountain is surrounded by apricot trees, blooming like snow. This wild stream merges into the largest river in Qingling country. The water transportation is busy, and the official ships come and go. The river is full of real money and silver. The Bamboo Branch School is the first immortal mansion of Qingling Kingdom, and its relationship with the imperial court has always been stable. I had a drink at the same table with Xiahou Zhan and Xiahou Jianxian of Shilongfeng before. As an outdated guest of the Bamboo Branch School, my monthly salary has doubled from 6 snows. After all, he is a pawn and the Sesame official is also an official. At the end of each year there is a dividend, but it depends on the operation of the Zhuji faction. Qin Jiu likes to fish at night and he is willing to pay for his nesting. Cui Yushan likes to joke that if we, Qin Dianka, make a nest the water level of the entire wild stream can rise by an inch. That night, Uncle Bai found the old one, and the old man watched for a while at the skilled walker of the outer door, and then threw a herring weighing more than 30 kilograms into the big fish basket. After seeing the lively scene, the old man said straight to the point, Old, I won't go around with you. I suggest you to change to another place because this kind of thing belongs to Jade Yushan's presumptuous proposition, unilaterally breaking the contract. So the Zhuji faction, the accountant will give you a sum of immortal money. You go to withdraw the money tomorrow morning. As for my side, there is no need to say goodbye. Squatting on the edge of the stream, the old man was stunned and stared at the old man for a long time. After he was sure it was not a joke, he became anxious, threw the fishing rod at his feet, got up and said, Uncle Bai, this is not appropriate, but it is if there is an extra 6 snows a month to spend money on, we are going to drive people away? Are we cutting Yushan so short of money that we can't open the pot? It's okay, the big deal is that I will suffer a bit of a loss. The salary is gone, so as not to make the Xiahou Jianxian face bad, I will spend the extra 6 snows in private, and return them all to Cui Yushan. The old man smiled bitterly and shook his head. It has nothing to do with this. You don't need to know the reason. It's not bad for you to leave early. Uncle Bai, if you don't care about love anymore, I really want to say if you don't leave your father here, you will have your own place. Qin Jiu said, to tell the truth without ignoring the conscience, without a young and promising outsider like me, who can work hard and bear no complaints, it's a loss for your Zhuji faction. Bai and I smiled and said, that's the best way. I'll tell you later if I regret the green intestines. There will be such a day, and I'll be ashamed to beg you to return to Xiayu Mountain. If the Zhuji faction can get through this difficulty, Bai and I is really willing to let this outer sect come back to cut Yushan. It's just that things are impermanent. Tomorrow's cloudy and sunny. How do you say today? What happened? Is there some kind of enemy who was unable to cut the grass and rooted in the Bamboo Branch School, but now has a great identity and came to the door clamoring to destroy it? Qin Jiu said in a low voice, Uncle Bai, I'm not bragging. If it's such a thing, I can come forward and mediate. I'm good at fighting and I'm good at being reasonable. Bai and I said with a smile, nonsense. Do you think it is our Bamboo Branch School in Jingyang Mountain? To be honest, the old man is really reluctant to chase the old away. Not only his white mud, but the old craftsmen who cut Yushan all like this young man who can brag, drink wine and work carefully. Every time they catch a fish at night, young people often wear aprons to cook, invite the old people to have a drink together in their spare time, and listen to the old stories of stone quarriers and jade pickers. The old and firm said, Uncle Bai, I really put the harsh words here today. If there is no valid reason to convince me, I will not leave. What's the point of working hard or just thinking about Uncle Bai? Let me introduce you to get a genealogy status in the Zhuji school. Bai and I smiled and said, why, they really said that you are poor, but your spirit is high. You think that our head Gua has no Taoist partner. Do you have any ideas? Qin Jiu was really anxious this time. Fuck your stinky farts, these guys are chewing their tongues like a broken mouth bitch, and when I look back I let them spit out all the wine and vegetables and they are still thinking about eating fish and drinking, right? Eat and pee. Looking at the scolding young man, the old man patted the old shoulder and said, listen to the persuasion, let's go. Old and silent, he squatted on the ground again, picked up the fishing rod, grabbed the bait hook and threw the rod into the water. The old man sat on the side, not willing to say anything serious to the young man, and said with a smile, I don't really know how high the sky is, and think there is a chance for head Guo to become a Daoist partner, right? Qin Jiu said helplessly, even if the head of Guo likes me, I don't like her. The old man smiled and said, oh? Do you have a girl you like in your heart? Qin Jiu grinned, yes, and we'll be married soon. The old man nodded and said, it's a good thing, remember to send me a wedding invitation when that time comes. I will definitely go for a wedding wine. Can I sit at the main table? The premise is that if there is still a chance to drink wedding wine, the old man must go. Qin Jiu smiled and said, as long as Uncle Bai dares to sit at the main table, I have no problem. The old man smiled and said, Old, can you correct this stinky problem of bragging about not writing drafts in the future? Stale stared at the fishing line on the surface of the water and asked in a low voice, Uncle Bai, tell me the truth. To be honest, are we in trouble with the bamboo branch school? Is it over the Xinjiang mountain? Bai Ni hesitated for a while and said, actually it's hard to tell you this. In short, you have encountered a difficult hurdle. As for whether it has anything to do with Xinjiang mountain, you don't need to know. Leave and stay out of the way, I won't hurt you. After sitting quietly for a while, the old man got up and left. Qin Pingon turned his head to look at the old man's back, and after retracting his gaze he continued to fish. 200 years ago, Guo Huifeng personally signed a landscape contract with the Qingling country court, renewing the lease of Yushan for 200 years. It's just about to expire this year. As the largest and only cornucopia of the Zhuji faction, Kaiyushan must be thinking of renewing the contract. Previously, Xia Hozan ran over to collect the rent. It seemed like a normal thing, but in fact it was just like Guo Huifeng's guess. Whether it was Xingyang Shanshui Longfeng Yan Jianxian secretly instigating it or Xia Hozan thinking of making up for it, it was Xiaomen who suffered. Zihis bamboo branch pie. The Zhuji faction does have a so-called priority renewal contract, but this clause that seems to be written in black and white in the contract is optional. The jade-cutting mountain behind Qin Pingon has been mined for hundreds of years. According to the latest survey results of the previous Qingling country geographer, all the jade reserves are estimated at 120 grain rain money. This is regardless of the cost of mining, the salaried salaries that the bamboo branch sect must pay to its own qi trainers and craftsmen, as well as some additional expenses related to Qingling Kingdom's dignitaries and dignitaries. What's more, as one of the vassal sects of Xinjiang Mountain, the Zhuji sect also needs to share the account with Xinjiang Mountain every year. After deducting such a sum of immortal money, within the next 100 years, the Zhuji sect will excavate a mountain of cutting jade, and if it dies, it will be worth 30 or 50 grain rain money. Therefore, Guo Huifeng originally planned to ask Bai Ni's master, the money-handling cultivator of the Zhuji faction, to offer 30 pieces of grain rain money to the Qingling Kingdom's court, which was very sincere. The Zhuji faction is divided into two veins, Saiyu Mountain and Jizu Mountain. Guo Huifeng is from the Chuayu mountain line. Ling Xia, the patriarch of the law, is from Jizu Mountain. The Taoist name is Rain Period. The apprentice of the master of Jizu Mountain. Early the next morning, Bai Ni first went to a house at the foot of the mountain. The young man who served as a guest of the outer door still left. The old man was relieved. Then he went to the nearby Saiyu Mountain account and found that it was outdated. Didn't receive the immortal money that was considered severance pay. The old man laughed and scolded, "Stinky boy, he's quite temperamental. If you bump into the old man will inevitably want to teach you a lesson. You are not a godly master with a lot of money. You are a person who is about to marry a wife, so why compete with money?" By the wild creek, a storm blew apricot blossoms like flying snow. Bai Ni was walking by the water with an umbrella. He wanted to see apricot blossoms that he didn't know if he could see them again in the future. As the old man walked, he realized that he was looking at the old scenery with his heart, just like the new scenery. The hometown, which was originally opposite each other day and night, was like a stranger who had never met before, and when the wind blew the flowers, it was more like an emaciated beauty with frowning frowns. The old man walked all the way to the junction where the stream joins the Chiha River, and found a black spot on the water's edge. When I got closer, I saw a fisherman wearing a hat, a hood and straw sandals. He looked young and dressed as a Taoist priest. The other party claimed to be a Jianghu person who hit the government in Chongzhou. A penny stumped a heroic man. He had bad luck and a bad fate. Bai Ni casually asked Dao Chong how the fish was caught. The Daoist looked embarrassed and said that it was all right. After the rain, the weather was fine and the fire was lit, and today I can finally have a full meal. He probably guessed that the old man was a genealogical cultivator on the other side of Tsayu Mountain, and seeing that the old man did not intend to leave for a while, and the foreign Taoist monk who went fishing at the gate of someone else's mountain, he was a little uncomfortable in the end. Bai Ni doesn't mind strangers coming here to fish, not to mention the Chiha River, it's a wild stream. Could it be that whose name is still engraved on the fish in the water? In fact, the old man was not interested in fishing at first, but he was familiar with the way of fishing. Over time, the old man saw some interest in the way of life. Besides, as the old man said many times, watching people fishing is like hearing the sound of books in a dream. It's interesting, not to mention watching people fishing rods, just like drinking wine without spending money. You can pour a piece of lei. The young Taoist priest was quite good at fishing, and he didn't see how he would make up the nest, so he caught several fat crucian carp one after another. Now the Taoist priest had to bite the bullet and explain that if you can't cook it in one pot and you can't eat the rest, you can take it to the fish market to sell it for money and exchange some dishes. Bai Ni nodded and turned to leave. The old man with the umbrella didn't walk out a few, when he heard the fishing line suddenly stretched behind him, and then there was the sound of a big fish pulling the line. Hearing the sound, Bai Ni knew that he was catching a big fish. The old man was very happy for the Taoist priest, and he didn't even think about watching people walk the fish. After a while, the Taoist priest shouted loudly, "That old man, stop here, you can't buy it. Buying a fish. This fish looks very strange and extraordinary, look at it, there are words on its forehead." At this moment, the Taoist priest lost his fishing rod and sat cross-legged, holding a large red-tailed carp with golden scales that was half a human's length in his arms. Bai Ni turned around and asked with a smile, "Tell me, what words?" The Taoist priest was elated and slapped the fish's forehead. The mud golden text, "Only 1.5 of the horn is left," which the poor Taoist still vaguely recognizes, and the rest of the traces are like light bird seals, which are too old, like ancient monuments. There is a horn character on the forehead. These signs are good. But don't be a fine, it's a pity to stew for the poor Dao, and the poor Dao is also worried about being punished and struck by thunder. Old man, you see that we are destined, it's a big carp caught by your doorstep, why don't you buy it and keep it at home? What kind of auspicious thing is a few fairy money? Old man, do you think it's true or not? The old man with the umbrella was a little helpless. When I Bai Ni was that kind of 3-year-old child. You are a foreign Taoist priest, you just fish when you fish, how can you cheat on your money? However, the old man patiently listened to the nonsense of the Taoist priest over there, and did not expose the other party. He thought that the old things were still here, and it was estimated that the two sides were chatting. There are liars all over the world who sell antiques as fakes. In short, they are just one mouth. They all rely on storytelling. They are either handed down from the ancestors or just dug out of the ground. The old man remembered that the old man once said that there is a way to make a living. Near some Xianxia ferry near the water, there is often a liar who prepares a fish with engraving on the forehead. It is best to be the kind of carp that sells well. Red and gold are even better. Using this fish must be a way of saying that it will go into the sea and return to land water after many years. It is similar to what is written in the book. The so-and-so monarch once wrote an inscription in red pen. Could it be this one? Palm eye. In addition, there are a few supporters next to him to help coax him, and he is the first to bid, specifically to deceive the gods on the mountain who have read some books but not much. In fact, the old man has always suspected that Qinjiu had done this kind of deed himself. Otherwise he would be the kind of person who would be trusted to share the spoils after the fact. Bai Ni sighed, it's really not easy for these rootless duckweed like Xianxia to eat and eat, so he waved his hand and signaled the Taoist priest to stop working hard and go to other places to cheat money. Buzzed vaguely. The two golden fish whiskers beside the carp's mouth trembled, swaying like water plants. The Taoist priest became more and more diligent and shouted at the top of his voice, "Old man, do you hear? This fish can really speak, it's really scary. I can't understand the content, most of it is Zhou Xian." The golden carp, which was only half a step away from being successfully shaped, Did swim all the way from the sea to Dadu to the Chiha River here just to relax. Near the White Emperor City in the Middle Earth, it fell short and failed to jump to the Dragon Gate. It fell endlessly, but relying on the atmosphere of the residual Dao Qi and the Dragon Qi intertwined, the temples and temples along the way did not dare to stop it. Daoist priest, he was caught on the shore with the most unscrupulous means of